Hello. I thought I knew what this book was long before it was published. That is, well, let me hold it up for you. Grim and Oro, Grim and Oro, Grim and Oro Dueling Crowns. I thought I knew what it was just way before it was ever published. It was announced shortly after the third Lightlark book, Skyshade, was released. Alex Aster teased it as something for both fans of Oro and Grim, making it easy to correctly guess what this Lightlark 3.5 would be. Prequel lore and canon retellings from the perspectives of the love interests. This is not a new concept in YA. For a while, many series would release short novellas in between books. Like, off the top of my head, Sweet Evil, Fallen, Cinder, Delirium, and Hush Hush all did this. A significant difference, though, between those examples and Lightlark 3.5 is that most of them were never printed. This was during the 2000s when ebooks were like really hitting it off, and these stories were often digital exclusives. They were shorter, they were bonus content, and kind of just extras, like not enough to warrant a physical edition. A few of them then would get special printings. I have the Fallen like short story collection. I have that because I found it at a thrift shop once, but a lot of them just were never published. But Lightlark 3.5, titled Grim and Oro, this is a different breed of beast. This thing was released as a special edition first. One so special that it has its own unique title. It's actually called Grim and Oro Dueling Crowns. And this hardback, beyond having a name which conjures one of those, to me, like bad army building mobile games, like you see things and it's like Avatar, Realms Collide, like that kind of thing. Game of Thrones, War of the Swords, or whatever. Like, that's what Oro and Grim Dueling Crowns invokes to me. But this edition, this hardback, it's just exceedingly deluxe. Like, as I'm showing it here, you can see that it has its own special casing for it. You get to see Grim looking really silly poking out. And then it slides out, into this really, really fancy. It's double-sided. As you can see, it's reversed. It has these painted edges, which are fully illustrated. You can't see a lot of it because of all my little note cards here, but they're very pretty, very nice. The art here, very vivid. The interiors have art inside as well, just here. It's absolutely this beautiful special edition that just frames it so nice. And I really do mean, like, it's beautiful. My battle against the series does not prevent me from admiring this printing. Like, it is well made, it looks great, it truly is the fan service Alex Aster promised it would be. Like, I've not seen special editions, like, I've not seen one as nice as this one, and this isn't even part of the main series. It looks better to me than the actual, like, special editions of the main series. In another decade, these two novellas would never have received such an expensive, luxurious package. It's part of this thing where these days is pretty common in a lot of, like, YA romantasy space, these really, really fancy, very pretty special editions. People buy them because they look good for photos and social media. It's a whole thing. And yeah, I'm this thing here, in another decade, these two novellas would never have been put in something this pretty. And honestly, that would have been a good thing. Like, I hope the following does not startle you, but Lightlark, Grim and Oro, Dueling Crowns is a very bad book. I anticipated this with my years of experience. I thought I knew what this book was long before it was published. Two novellas from Grim and Oro's POVs, a mix of retelling and new backstory, a lot of fan service, as Aster had promised. It would be rushed and sloppy, eye-roll worthy and dumb. And I would have fun. And you would have had fun. And the world would continue to turn. What I did not expect about this book, though, was the kind of bad it would be as a new low for the series. That this book, for the Oro and Grim girlies, would tarnish these barely beloved characters so thoroughly that it would be astonishingly misogynistic, that it would play favorites like never before, and that it would include kissing so gross it makes most people literally gag. There's a lot to discuss about these novellas, about this book, and about its place in both the series and the world. Like, Alex Astor has published far too many books within a 12-month period. I've discussed before how publishing a single book typically, or ideally really, takes about a year from beginning to release, not including the time it takes to write the book. That's just the publishing time that it takes for editing, just the work involved, the layouts, cover design. It's usually like a year. And Astor had her adult romance debut in March 2025, released Lightlark 3.5 in September, Lightlark 4 in December, and is due to release an adult fantasy book in March of 2026. That's too many books. And from what I've heard, Astor is utterly exhausted. On tour for this book, she's talked about writing nonstop, like 6 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, to the degree that it's causing genuine health issues. And as much as I might joke about Lightlark and jest about Astor, I do need to make something clear, and that is horrible, and I do have sympathy for her situation. Like, that kind of workload is unfair and inhumane, and I have read the end results of it. Like, do I like Astor's work? No. Do I believe it could be good? I believe, technically, that everyone has potential. But do I believe it could be better? Yes. Writing a book takes time. Editing takes time. I know her editors are rushed, just as she is rushed, just as the cover artist even is rushed. The only benefactor here is the publisher, just trying to pump as much as they can out of her. And all this rush really speaks to an certain unpleasant idea, a distrust in the value of investing in an author for a long time, of believing her work is worth spending time, money, and effort on, as opposed to just churning it out nonstop as just slop. Astor signed the contract still. Astor wrote these words, and we're going to talk about what she wrote with no further real grace to her situation. After all, a book published by one of the big 5 publishers is not purely the output of an individual. Like, imagine what the world would be like if a single editor was allowed to work on Astor's books for longer than 24 hours. It wouldn't be a utopia, but, like, maybe this book would have been a little less of a disaster. Lightlark is a headache to discuss due to ever-compounding naming choices. Lightlark the series contains Lightlark the book, which features Lightlark the island and Lightlark the world. It follows Isela the girl, who later finds Isela the island. There's a plant called Nightbane, which grows on the island Nightshade in the book Nightbane, and the book Sky Shade introduces Sky Shade the world. So you know what this series needs? Grim and Oro, which follows Grim and Oro, and consists of the novellas Grim and Oro. It might be a little confusing which I'm referring to, but I'm gonna do my best. I read Oro, the novella, first. Apparently, this is Astor's recommendation of an order, but I chose to do so because, famously, Oro can't have shit on this bitch of a Lightlark, and I felt that he deserved to go first for once. I no longer feel this way having read Oro. Here is a spoiler about the novella. It assassinates Oro's character completely. I think I used to somewhat like the guy, beyond simply feeling piteous amusement at how Astor treats him compared to Grim. He was reasonable and controlled his emotions. He cared about consent. He represents tropes that I like in better works, the idea of a stoic king who places himself second to his people, who suffers and suppresses his emotions because he has trained himself to not value himself as an individual, only a crown. He is meant to be, you'd think, a contrast to Grim. Light and hope, nobility instead of selfishness, someone who is full of self-denial, finally choosing to want. In the novella Name for Oro, He is a petulant, emotional, obnoxious little bastard. He is weak, stupid, and more than anything else, pathetic. He is a stalker with violent mood swings and suffers from such a deep obsession with Isela, it often appears he has gone briefly brain dead. Like, this schmuck sucks, and there really isn't a better word for it than that. I truly feel bad for any actual Oro fans who went into this expecting what Aster promised. Something for them. Something that was fan service, that would explore the ship they hope will somehow still win. Something that would flesh out this character. And this isn't fleshing, this is hollowing, carving everything interesting and good about Oro out until he's just a husk of unpleasantry. But let's stop exposing about these flaws in broad detail. Let's talk about what actually happens and provide some evidence. It'll take a little bit before we get to his true lows, but we'll get there. This story begins during an unknown year, when Oro is an unclear age, and it spans an uncertain period of time over many unspecific time skips. By my best guess, Oro is around 13 years old. He's talking to his brother, Egan, and it is comically direct in foreshadowing their fates. Who knows, maybe you'll get to be king one day. No, I say, scowling. I never want to be king. It's true. Why not? The answer is obvious, but I decide to humor him, because that will mean you're gone. He nods. With a slap against his knees, he rises from the chair with a flourish. Very true, Oro, and I like being alive, even if training is tiring. Page 3. It's so... Gee, I sure like being alive, little brother. Haha, it sure is good I'm the heir who will be king. That's right, older brother. I do not want to be king, and I like that you are alive. Boy, I sure hope nothing about our situation changes. The prose in this series has never been fantastic, but it takes telling over showing to a new level. Oro speaks to his unnamed mother about his unnamed father. We are told his father does not like him and does not spend time with him. His father is present in one scene where he speaks 4 sentences before his off-page death a few pages later. That is his full presence in the book. Despite this, Oro's father and relationship with him is a key facet to what little story exists within this book. See, Oro can gild things solid gold, a gift which was discovered by his mother when he was a newborn. She hid this from his father and took Oro to be trained by a wildling named Elk until his power was under control. Years later, Oro accidentally gilded a man solid gold. His father, excited, demanded Oro perform this at court, but Oro found himself unable to use any of this power. He's dismissed forever as an embarrassment and failure, and his father refuses to spend any time with him from that point on. And world-building wise, I have to just intrude in here and say, this doesn't make any sense. Lightlark, if you, like the author, has forgotten, is a world where the average person easily could live to be 800 years old, while royalty may stretch into the thousands, theoretically infinite years for royalty. Oro's father did not care about Oro before the gilding incident, and fully dismisses him after, when he's like 10. Oro is the spare, but he's going to be around for a very long time, as is his father, as is his brother. In fact, it's Sunling tradition for the king to eventually magically remove his power and transfer it to his heir, which extends their lifetime for a very long retirement. This isn't a situation where the king will die in 20 years, so it doesn't matter if he treats his spare well, where either the heir or the spare are likely to die when they're young. Oro's father is going to live with him for centuries. Deciding to never speak to your child because spares don't matter doesn't make sense in a world like this. Similarly, dismissing him further because he's not able to use his powers after a traumatizing incident is just as stupid. He's probably going to get over it. He's like 10. He could live to be thousands of years old. Unfortunately, these kinds of just world-building issues were rampant in this book. Aster is pulling on fantasy tropes and common world decisions which fundamentally do not work with Lightlark. The world of the series isn't the most original, but it is just so dampened by Aster turning to tropes, overthinking about implications, the things that could be interesting about the stuff that she's set up. And speaking of, the worst offense yet is the main concern of the first half of this novella. Oro's training. Because he's vaguely 13 but can't use his powers, his parents send him to training early in hopes that he'll get them back. As he's of the royal origin family line, his family alone can wield all of the powers of Lightlark, meaning he's going on a journey between the Isles to master each element. It's his own little avatar quest. He's going to start at Sun Isle, then go to Moon Isle, Star Isle, and finally Sky Isle. But wait, and I'm stopping myself here because you almost certainly haven't noticed what I'm about to bring up. What about Wild Isle? You see, before the centennial curses, the nations lived in harmony. Except Nightshade, which left a long time ago for kind of unclear reasons. Wildlings live on Lightlark at this point, yet Oro isn't learning wildling power. In fact, it seems he can't learn it. And in all of my Lightlark reviews, I have explained the meaning of an origin as somebody who can use the powers of those who live on Lightlark Isle, assuming a certain population density. As of the main series, only 4 nations remained, but I very much assume that during the heyday, the origin would have access to all possible powers. While there were nightshades and wildlings on the island, surely the origin would have their powers. This would make sense with the later Nexus Curse lore, which is what binds people to their rulers and which filters through the origin family line. If the curse runs through the origin, but wildling and nightshade were never connected to it, you would think that the Nexus Curse would not affect them. It also seems odd from a world-building perspective, because if the origins rule everyone, them having access to everyone's power makes sense as a sort of backwards justification. They are the symbol of unity, the family line who connects all powers and nations, and as proof of that, they can control all the elements. Yet, apparently we are to understand this was never the case, and wildlings and nightshades once lived under a ruling family who could wield every power but theirs. And that feels weird as hell, right? Like, this guy clearly doesn't represent me if he can't even grow a tomato. Yet, despite all this, the book quite firmly confirms that this is the case. All the royal heirs inherit the 4 Lightlark abilities: Sunling, Moonling, Starling, and Skyling, and are sent on rotations to each isle until they master each power. Page 6. I felt it in my bones that this was the most bizarre retcon of all time, and so I went hunting through the previous books for references. The powers of the origin are brought up 4 times. Let's go through all of them quickly. The last remaining origin, with blood from each of the 4 realms that still had a presence on the island. He could wield each of the 4 Lightlark powers. Lightlark Chapter 2. As an origin, he had all the Lightlark realms as powers. Lightlark, Chapter 13. In Origin, who was Starling, Skyling, Moonling, and Sunling combined. Lightlark, Chapter 21. Oro was the last remaining origin who could wield each of the remaining Lightlark powers. Skyling, Starling, Moonling, and Sunling. Nightbane, Chapter 2. So, while it has always been those 4 powers, I do feel like I am justified in thinking otherwise. He has blood from the realms which still had a presence. He could wield each of the remaining Lightlark powers. I feel like it is implied his family line ought to have once been able to use Wildling and Nightshade power. Yet, even as I argue this, I recognize the futility. The line between intention, retcon, and accident can be so blurry. Tangent I alone am passionate about aside, we were discussing tropes Aster relies on over cohesive world building, and as much as a training arc is one of those, it alone is not what I have umbrage with. The issue lies in how ludicrously violent it all is. Day 1 of training, Oro is racing across the wilderness of Sun Isle with the other recruits. It is explicitly stated the instructors do not care if the trainees maim or kill each other, only that they cross the finish line. Killing someone peers isn't encouraged or rewarded either, but this does not matter. All of them have a deep bloodlust that crosses far beyond bullying. He and his 2 friends pinned me to the dirt. Enya leaped forward, but I shook my head at her, just as 5 more of the Sunling group stepped out of the brush. "Let's see if he bleeds red like the rest of us," Ash said, before producing a jagged rock from his pocket. He pressed its edge to my arm and sliced down the length of it. The pain was blinding, burning. The skin cut instantly. And, to the fool's delight, I did bleed red. Idiot. "Maybe we just need more blood," he said. He looked at the group around him. "Get more rocks. The sharper, the better," he snapped. A few disappeared into the forest. Only 3 remained. And that's when Enya took a rock the size of her head and smashed it over Ash's skull. Page 11 to 12. We will never get Oro's exact age, but again, these are like at most 14-year-olds. What is going on with these kids in this society? What training means is quite vague, but while Lightlark has an army, it has been at peace since before this generation was born. Aster treats Lightlark society like ours, where there are a lot of kids born every year, where kids dying during training wouldn't be impactful on the overall population. Yet, Lightlark is a society of quasi-immortals and appears to have a low fertility to counter this. Later, a character is remarked to have taken decades to have a child. And while that might be her specific, most families we hear of have 1 or 2 children despite centuries of marriage. Yes, having kids somehow begins the process of you dying, but there's at least one outlier family with 30 kids where the patriarch didn't immediately keel over. Low fertility is something included in many long-lived fantasy species, such as elves, and I think it is the intention that Lightlark works similarly. Except, that creates a huge problem with these goddamn training camps, doesn't it? On Lightlark, babies are honored, even coveted. Page 78. If children are rare, and thus coveted, what kind of society would be fine with them getting maimed or killed while training during peacetime? Not one that makes sense. Aster wants this brutal, hyper-violent training because she's probably read it somewhere, but it does not work. I have more to discuss about Sunling training, but I'll flash ahead to his Moonling training. His first night there, he's made to sleep without a blanket in the snow, and then immediately sent on a month-long expedition into the frozen wastes, where it is said that more than half the class won't survive. His instructor has a reputation for no one surviving her training. At that point, surely the issue is with her, right? At that point, surely we should re-evaluate how we teach our children? Even if they were at war, killing or injuring your trainees is an incredibly idiotic move. Those are your soldiers. You need them. Aster operates on this getting beat up and suffering makes you special strong philosophy, but that's not how it works, and it definitely doesn't apply to group warrior training. You're not cutting out the weak. You're just killing people. At one point, the Moonling instructor says, "The Winterland is unforgiving, and so is life." Page 29. But is it? That's the other factor which is so dissonant from the story it is presenting. This training doesn't function with the world building in regards to logistics, strategy, or population. It especially doesn't function in regards to emotion. Babies are precious, so it's hard to imagine a population who would be chill with their tween getting their head bashed in on the first day of warrior school. What kind of society would be okay with that? A brutal one? One where family is unimportant, where community does not exist, where people are distrusting and value power more than anything else, where a person dying is not a tragedy but a sign of their weakness and a relief on resources. But this is simply not the society of Lightlark. Lightlark ought to be a utopia, and we certainly see nothing beyond this training suggesting otherwise. 5 nations live in perfect peace. Each of them are magical and able to easily contribute resources to the aid of others. Wildlings can grow food instantly. Moonlings can fish, draw water, and heal. Skylings can control the weather. Starlings can shape metal and material to whatever purpose, and Sunlings create fire. there aren't any cultural tensions, as the culture is all very homogenous. There are rebels against the crown, but we literally never hear what their complaints are. This is a land of endless resources, where no one appears to significantly lack anything. The opposite of a place which would merely shrug at a gang of 6 tweens pinning a boy down and bleeding him dry. And adding to the incoherence, we shouldn't forget that Oro is royalty. His peers wanting to bully him for this is one thing, but the nonchalance of his mentors makes no sense. Oro is treated as expendable as everyone else, but he is the second heir to the absolute ruler of the realm. His dying would be bad from any point of view, but Oro's father is the type of man known for burning his enemies to ash in public. The king may not value Oro, but if he failed to punish someone for a negligent or intentional death, he'd look incredibly weak. Yet all Aster wants to show is brutality, and so that is what we see. Training far more deadly than those dang deadly centennial games, and for no reason at all. If there was anything I was excited about in this book, it was the prequel aspects. Oro's training was immediately so silly in how brutal it was, I was excited to see how things could escalate. The novella, however, disagrees. Oro's Sunling training consists of a single chapter. He is attacked by his peers, and we jump a month forward. He's locked in a hole until he finds a way to use his powers, and eventually is retrieved after he fails to. A few days later, he learns to use his powers, and then we skip to a short scene, an uncertain number of years later, at the end of his training. Oro's arc during this time is meant to be his relationship to his powers, how he can't summon fire after accidentally gilding somebody as a child. The solution to this is that his best friend Enya tells him to let out his anger, and he yells, and he's fine. It never comes up again. I don't think you can call something character development if it lasts half a chapter. There's opportunity here to flesh out the world in so many little simple ways, and the book eagerly rushes forward. Oro has attended lessons, he's participated in exercises, observed examples. We could be learning about training at training camp, but instead he yells, and then from then on he's a master. The timescale is especially frustrating. The next chapter takes place at the end of his last year of Sunling training. It has been years, but we don't know how many. He was 13 the chapter before. Is he now 25? 16? His semi-immortal nature means both are possible, but both remain vastly different ages. And what makes the nebulous age and timeline of Oro worse is that in Grimm's book, we know the entire time. Grimm's age is clearly stated in his first chapter. Every time skip in Grimm's book is labeled with how much time has passed. There is one chapter in Oro labeled 10 years later, and that decade skip has no real significance to the plot, and it still doesn't tell us how old the titular character actually is. So, okay, end of his training. The indefinitely aged Oro is going with Enya to his favorite place, a beach I long ago dubbed the Of Mice and Men Oral Sex Beach, and if you don't recall the context of that, I'm not going to help you. It's green, a beautiful color I've only seen on Wild Isle, once, when Elk took me to watch wildlings duel, page 22. If you're thinking, wow, Oro has never seen the color green before? That seems unlikely. You are correct. He lives on the main isle of Lightlark, which has green grass, as was referenced just 14 pages ago. Her ornate dress drags across the light green grass. That's page 8. Oro and Enya are childhood best friends, who could have a nice dynamic if the book cared to devote more time to it. She was introduced in the second book out of nowhere, and is a free-spirited badass who flies with fiery wings and has no fear because she knows the exact day and manner of her death. She's also a lesbian, one of the 3 LGBT plus characters in the series. Cleo and Azul are the others, not counting Azul's dead husband. So she's kind of a fun, preemptively bury your gays there, trope. She and Oro talk on this beach, and it isn't a notable scene at all, beyond containing another wonderful chunk of stilted prose that I personally am just obsessed with. Enya speaking first. If I had any interest in you whatsoever, I would say this would be a great place to take someone romantically. Truth, she has no interest in me. While some women have started to look at me differently, staring when they never used to, Enya has never once liked me in any other way than a friend. I know that for certain, with my flair, and neither have I. We're friends, best friends, but that doesn't mean I don't love her. Still, I give her a look. As if either of us have time for romance. Enya laughs. Speak for yourself. I look over at her in curiosity, but she moves on before I can ask her anything else. Page 23. This is like heterosexual no homo, a phrase which is nonsense, but it's the best I got. These two are affirming to the umpteenth degree that they are not interested in each other, to the point it feels like parody, as if they are in love, but deep in denial. Except they're not. They are a boy and a girl and childhood friends, and one of them is a lesbian, and they still feel the need to reinforce they aren't romantically or sexually attracted to each other 4 times in a row. It would have been easy to mention Enya's sexuality here. Oro could, in narration, mention her dating women, or stating such. Enya could out loud come out or mention this, yet all we get is a coy suggestion she is maybe dating someone. In fact, Enya's sexuality is never mentioned even casually in this book. And I also want to call attention to the line, we're friends, best friends, but that doesn't mean I don't love her. This implies that it would be typical to not love your best friends. Are the heterosexuals okay? I assure you, the gender of the people you date does not limit the gender of people you can love platonically. It isn't weird unless you make it incredibly weird, as this book is doing. Moving on, Oro heads off to his moonling training. As previously discussed, he's left to sleep outside without shelter or warmth in a snow pile on his first night, and the next morning is sent on a month-long excursion to survive in the wilderness, which very few survive. His instructor has a record of having no surviving trainees, and what I haven't told you is that instructor is Cleo. The Sunling training was so short, I didn't have high hopes for Moonling, but I was excited to see Cleo. Sadly, she's in one scene, which adds nothing to her characterization or lore. She might as well just be any other unnamed NPC. This section is actually about Calder, Oro's Moonling friend. Oro hears whispers from his new classmates about how scary his partner on this Arctic expedition is, how his partner would kill Oro, and he's shocked to learn that it is Calder, a boy whose father was the head of the greatest resistance Lightlark has seen in centuries, a man whose Oro's dad incinerated a few years ago. We never learn what that greatest resistance Lightlark has seen in centuries was, what they wanted, what it looked like. We never learned that, don't worry. Oro spends a while very paranoid about that Calder is going to kill him at any moment, despite Calder showing zero hostility, until eventually they talk. He realizes that Calder means him no harm, as he's not his father, and they shake hands. An uncertain number of years later, Oro is done with his Moonling training. Even more so than Sunling, we do not see Oro learn to use his powers. At least of Sunling, he always had fire within him. Here, he off-page masters ice and water and healing abilities without a single remark on how he managed it and what it was like. His time with Calder is 1 chapter lasting 2 days. This training arc is more of a montage of how Oro met his friends, but it doesn't even do a good job introducing them. Oro and Calder barely speak until the end, and even this is stilted. Most of it is just this repetitive inner monologue from Oro. I opened this review by discussing how unpleasant Oro is within it, but I have yet to provide any examples, and this is because the majority of his wretchedness is centered around Isela, who will blessedly not be with us for a while. The warning signs of what is to come, however, are present in the monologues. Right. Is this it? Is this the moment Calder decides to wait until everyone has moved past us and strikes? Calder begins unpacking his bag. There's a blanket and pillow inside. Did he know about the challenge? Did he have an advantage? Then I realize I recognize the stuff. It's my blanket that Agnes made me and the pillow I left in our room. Did he steal it? Before I can ask any questions, he easily rips the thick material down the center, hands 1/2 to me, and keeps 1/2 for himself. Then he lies down and turns away. I am left standing in the middle of the snow, dumbfounded. It isn't even that late. We should keep walking while it's relatively warm. We should make progress. Also, did he just rip my fucking blanket? I wonder what I should do. Should I take this opportunity to leave? Work by myself? No, I won't make it far on my own, especially since I'm already freezing. I carefully unfurl my half of my blanket and sit on it. I'm not foolish enough to try to sleep. That's when he'll strike, when I'm most vulnerable. Instead, I try my flames again. Nothing. They're still frozen, like everything around us. Fuck. This is going to be a long month. Page 32. You potentially have noticed something strange about the quotes I've shared so far. They are in first person present tense. Lightlark is written in third person past tense. Aster likely chose first person to further cement the POV of Oro and Grim, but that wasn't necessary. Third person can be limited to a close POV, as Lightlark is with Isela. In fact, at the end of the third Lightlark book, there were 2 third-person, past-tense chapters written from the POVs of Oro and Grim. All first-person achieves for this book is a license to ramble. Both novellas are increasingly repetitive, with Grim far worse. Lines of dialogue are broken by paragraph after paragraph of unimportant thought. At times, you can compare these novellas with the main series side by side, and find a conversation which lasted half a page in one that is 2 pages in this book. I don't have a clue why the tenses are different, but it is another factor which makes the book feel off, as if supplementary fan fiction written by someone else rather than something which fits cohesively into the series as a whole. It feels as if Aster and her editors couldn't be bothered to look at a previous book rather than a deliberate artistic choice. And speaking of language, yes, there is another oddity present in these novellas alone. Oro and Grim swear a lot. The moment I read Oro say fuck, I felt a surreal air overtake me. It didn't feel right, but then, like, how weird would it be to use fuck for the first time 3.5 books, nearly 2,000 pages into your series? I had to stop immediately and start searching the text. And the word fuck is not present in Lightlark, Nightbane, or Skyshade. It appears 37 times in Grim and Oro. The same is true of shit. 0 previous, 6 times here. I don't care about profanity because I'm like shocked or offended. Instead, I think it is a perfect representation of the general lack of care being put into both the writing and editing of the series that the language can be this inconsistent. Aster is clearly influenced by whatever she's recently read, and her writing style and habits have changed between books to reflect that. This isn't like some, as the books mature, so does the language. It's just a jarring inconsistency born out of a lack of effort. Something I joked about upon realizing how much swearing there was that, well, like, almost all the swearing is internal. The only time it is spoken out loud is a shit that Oro says to Grim in private. So it could be then that this isn't inconsistent to canon at all. Oro and Grim are cussing nonstop in their head, but Isela never witnesses this because they don't do it in front of Isela. She's only 20, so maybe she hasn't learned any bad words and they don't want to corrupt her. However, I took those numbers before the release of the 4th Lightlark book, Crown Tide, and fuck is used 53 times in that book, often multiple times in a row by everyone. The prose and style remains Aster. It is flat and uninspired, trope-laden, and in a rush to be elsewhere. But man, the voice is altered by such a simple, avoidable inconsistency. After Oro's moonling training, a period of unspecified time, his father summons Oro to the Sunling Castle in front of the full royal court. He then asks Oro to execute a prisoner, which Oro refuses, much to his father's shock. Oro then is jailed from his insolence. This scene is a page and a half long, and again, this is the only time in the present day we see Oro's father speak. Oro refusing to kill someone on his father's orders has already happened decades ago, yet him doing it again is written as if it is a turning point. With that, he turns to me. Would you do the honor, son? Son, he's never called me that. I've longed for him to call me that, to acknowledge me, to care. Here's my chance, handed to me, an opportunity to finally be in his good graces. No, I say instead. The world seems to stop. This is a prisoner who is sentenced to death anyway. I'm the king's son. Refusing his order in front of a crowd is nothing short of a scandal. Even my mother looks surprised. Egan looks concerned. My father is furious. What did you just say? He demands, his voice echoing through the room. He's not used to the word no. He's been king for centuries. I'm not used to saying it. But now that I've started, I realize I like it. No. When I was a child and refused, I was called insolent. Now as an adult, an heir who has mastered 2 abilities, I'm called a traitor, and I'm thrown in the castle prison. Page 43. You could, with the great gift of imagination, think of how this might have been an important moment in the story. You could have done the same with Oro being unable to use his powers, or with Oro's relationship to his father. This is written as if it has meaning, but it is afraid to linger in the moment longer than a few curt sentences, and terrified to give his father, this looming important figure in Oro's life, more than 3 spoken sentences. Oro being jailed by his father for his insolence ought to be something of note, like scandal, uproar, the prince jailed for what could be centuries, or could be until death. Yet instead it just simply occurs. It's rushed through like every other scene and chapter in this novella. His time in jail highlights this, and Astor's general lazy writing even further. Oro goes a week without food, as the guard who visits will only give it to him if Oro promises to kill that prisoner. But there's a hole in the ceiling of his cell which he catches rainwater through, and one day he sees an eye through this hole, and a skyling offers to bring him food in exchange for gems. This skyling is Zed, his future friend, and Zed is able to fly Oro food, pastries, water, even blankets. At no point does the warden notice this, or the man hovering above the prison, or that there's a hole large enough to fit blankets through into the cell that they've stashed the prince in. Soon, Zed throws a bomb, which they have in Lightlark apparently, and flies away with Oro. This whole thing, too, lasted about a page and a half, and more than anything else, bore no consequence. You might think an explosive prison break after being jailed for being disobedient and bringing shame to the family would matter. In Lightlark, Oro simply returns to being prince, and his father does nothing. I was anticipating an arc about Oro living in hiding for a while, about his deepening friendships as he waited for his dad to die, but we actually learn next to nothing about what happened there. There's a large time skip, something like 50 or 100 or more or less years, and Oro's parents are dead. That's it. We go from jailbreak to his parents are dead and moving on. So, how did they die? Well, it starts with a grammatically flawed paragraph. If my father had spent more time preparing for war and less on sending his armies off to explore faraway places, he might have survived its final battle. They both might have survived it. Page 46. These few paragraphs and some of the upcoming ones are one of my favorite sections in the book for how bad they are, but I need to interrupt to talk about those 2 sentences. Tell me, what does its refer to in the first sentences? What does they refer to in the second? This is a perfect example of writing which would have been an easy to fix in editing. It's just, if only the publisher could afford to pay someone for the task. The text is trying to say the king might have survived his army, its final battle, then that he and the army, they, might have both survived if he wasn't always exploring. The subject of its feels obscured by how the sentence runs on. More so, it feels unneeded. Using both to refer to the king and his armies suggests each are singular subjects. Both, after all, means 2. This man and his multiple armies do not represent 2 separate subjects unified and dying. It's just kind of a bit of a mess. Here's my revision to put my lack of money where their lack of money was. If my father had spent less time sending his armies off to explore faraway places and more time preparing for war, he might have survived the final battle. They all might have survived it. There. If you thought killing Oro's father off in such a distant manner was a surprise, just wait until you learn what the next few paragraphs are. We always knew Nightshade would try to take over Lightlark, yet instead of fortifying our armies, instead of protecting what we had, my father sent his guards out looking for more. We were down hundreds of soldiers when they first attacked. In the years since, we lost thousands more. The war was won by the skin of our teeth, but not before my parents were both cut down by the ruler of Nightshade. This doesn't feel like winning, not at all. Page 46. That's right, an entire war begins, is fought, and ends within 4 sentences. Thousands of people die. Oro fights on the front line as a general. We see none of this, but we do hear about it. From now on, Oro frequently reflects on the destruction and horror of the war. He didn't just kill for the first time during it, he killed hundreds of times. He's changed forever. In 4 goddamn sentences. There will be no flashbacks, no specifics, yet this war will dominate the narrative for a long chunk of the book ahead. This is where Oro's novella slows down, where the chapters stop skipping years and progress only a day or scene at a time for a while. After such a rush to get here, skimming training, character developing, plot, a war, you might wonder why the book is ready to settle down and just marinate for a while. And, well, that's because Grimm is here. It's funny, in that it's not funny, that Grimm lingers in the novel Oro for about 50 pages, while Oro exists in the novella Grimm for approximately 2. After the war, Grimm is a prisoner in the Sunling Castle. Nightshade was winning the war, but suddenly surrendered, with Grimm being taken prisoner as part of the deal. This flummoxes Oro and his friends, who see it as suspicious, but somehow struggle with how. Enya speaking. I keep thinking, Nightshade was winning. I don't understand why they agreed to a treaty. It doesn't make sense. If they kept going, they could have won. I've had the same thought, but have always come to the same conclusion. The Nightshade ruler and his heir are heartless monsters. If there was a way to win, they would have taken it, no matter the cost. Unless... You think they're planning something, I say. She nods. Zed gives us a look. And what's the plan? Him rotting in the prisons, tied down in as many ways as possible, and pissing in a bucket? She sighs. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Page 48. It seems like the most obvious trap possible, but Oro can't quite put it together. And it turns out it isn't a trap. But Oro can't wrap his head around that either. What we see once Grimm enters the picture is a very specific dynamic over and over. In every way, Nightshade and Grimm are superior to Lightlark and Oro. Nightshade was easily winning the war against 5 nations with diverse elemental powers. Grimm surrendered of his own free will because him being beaten or captured is too absurd a thought. Grimm seems to be plotting something evil, but it turns out his noble good heart surrendered because he's sick of being too good at murder, and he truly has pure intentions. Oro sets out to interrogate Grimm in the dungeons, and every long conversation they have sees Grimm as superior. He gets the one-liners in, the jabs, he is always on the front foot, while Oro is relegated to something of an over-emotional oaf who struggles to understand basic concepts. Grimm is ever the sexy, tortured, epic genocide hero that Aster views him as, even in a story ostensibly about Oro, in a book called Oro. Check out their first interaction. You're going to die, I tell him, my voice unrecognizable. This is reckless. This will lead to even more bloodshed, but I can't stop it. I don't want to stop. I grip the iron bars of his cell so I can watch. He doesn't shift a muscle, even as the fire travels close enough to burn. Finally, he looks up at me. His pale face is marred with cuts and bruises. You act as if it's a bad thing. I rip the flames away in shock. My hands are in fists around the bars of his cell. My voice is pure malice. You killed a lot of people for someone who doesn't value their own life. I didn't do it for me. Truth. I didn't know he was capable of it. My eyes narrow. I didn't come here for conversation, I growl, and the demon smiles, ripping open a cut at the corner of his mouth. Blood trickles down his chin. He doesn't seem to care. No, but you're so good at it, he drawls, sarcasm dripping from every word. I glare at him. I remember what Enya said, about how the ending of the war didn't make sense. He won't answer, I know that, but I have to ask anyway. Why did you surrender? Grimshaw tilts his head at me. He looks almost curious, and far too casual for someone who nearly burned alive a minute ago. I blink in surprise when he does answer. I tired of death. He lives on death. He's a monster, a damned liar. I bare my teeth, ready to launch my disgust at his lies, when sweetness smooths down my tongue. I start to question the reliability of my flair. I lean forward. Are you trying to get me to believe that you, demon warrior, famous for soaking your blade in the blood of your enemies, surrendered willingly because you didn't want anyone else to die? Grimshaw smirks. Then he drops my gaze like I disgust him. His face is nearly covered by his dark hair as his head hangs. Believe anything you want, second son. It doesn't make a difference to me. Page 51. Oro's jaw might as well be perpetually hanging open. If he was somewhat annoying at times before, Grimm's introduction marks a sharp shift in his personality for the worst. Like, Oro is supposed to repress his emotions, remember? It's perhaps his only clearly defined personality trait. We could say the war did this to him, but gee, if that's the case, I sure wish that I'd seen any of the goddamn war that forever rewrote his personality. Stretches of Lightlark have been reduced to ash and rubble. War has left its mark not just on the island, but on my mind. Rage is all I know. I retreat to quiet corners of the island to burn everything in my path. I find myself dreaming of sailing to Nightshade to stab 1,000 blades through its ruler. Page 49. It's such an easy excuse, it fails to be one. Like the destruction wrought upon Lightlark, we never learn any specifics about the trauma Oro has been through. It simply is, and it allows him to play the fool next to Grim. As the next few chapters concern Oro and Grim talking in prison, another pattern emerges. Excuses. Oro hates Grim for his part in the war, and because Grim's father killed Oro's parents. What Oro learns from Grim, however, is that the war was also bad for him. And this is mind-boggling. I'm not done. No, I can't stand here and pretend he didn't murder my people. I lean forward, gripping the bars. You killed thousands. Thousands. Good soldiers. With families. Hatred fills his eyes. He tilts his head to one side, sneering. And you? Did you think our soldiers were mindless murderers when you were killing them? He laughs without humor. They were fighting because they were following orders. Same as yours. You attacked first, I say through my teeth, voice rising. He attacked first, Grimshaw says, his voice cutting. We are not our fathers. Calder's voice is in my head. We were defending our lands, I hurl back, and they were protecting their lives. Grimshaw looks at me like I'm dirt. My father imprisons his soldiers' families. If they run away or fail him, he kills everyone they love. He rules them by fear. Truth. I blink, rearing back. Monstrous. It's monstrous. I feel an unexpected spike of guilt. I led our armies. We killed thousands of nightshades. No, I burn the feeling. I refuse to feel pity for the enemy. Page 55 to 56. Oh boy. Where to begin? Once more, the population of Lightlark is a number Aster fundamentally does not understand, as people die constantly without any effect, and Nightshade is able to sustain itself while losing thousands of soldiers and their extended families. Our heroes are both responsible for an unfathomable amount of human lives lost, yet it is all so abstract it is only used for sexy brooding rather than given appropriate weight. That's why both Oro and Grim bringing up the humanity of the soldiers involved feels so hollow. The book wants us to contend with the devastating loss of war, while at the same time mainly using these nameless peons to paint Grim as angsty, sexy, dangerous. The book really struggles with its ethics and politics of war. Perhaps it is for the best that Aster skipped it over, but maybe having to write it would have made her think about it a little longer. Oro points out that Nightshade attacked first, that Lightlark was defending itself from evasion. Grim retorts by saying Nightshade soldiers were merely protecting their lives, that the ruler of Nightshade attacked, not Nightshade itself, and this is somehow shocking to Oro. But it shouldn't be. This isn't a stupefying comeback like the book treats it, it's just stupid. Just following orders is not an excuse which fundamentally shakes the morality of war. People in Lightlark were also protecting their lives. People in Lightlark were also following the orders of their ruler. Sure, the ruler of Nightshade sucks, but the way the book frames it, this is as if it matters when it comes to Lightlark fighting back. The only fundamental difference between the two sides is that one is invading the other. There is no suggestion Lightlark was excessive in their defense or committed war crimes. Grim, actually, is the one who is said to be executing injured soldiers and not accepting anyone's surrenders. Yet he is passing the buck to his evil father and framing it as something no one had any choice in, as an excuse. Having your family held hostage if you don't fight a war still doesn't make that war okay, or equally equivalent to Lightlark defending itself. You could suggest, in a better book, that this is an intentional character choice, something related to how Grim views the war and his place in it. But this is not a better book. This is something Oro has never considered, which Grim in his wisdom knows that we as the reader are meant to understand as a revelation. Because this isn't the only time this exact argument comes up. Ivan Wolf. He finally looks up. Blood has crusted down his mouth. The prisoner isn't supposed to be touched, but it seems the guards haven't kept their orders. 207 years old. 3 daughters, a wife pregnant with a 4th. Taller than either of us, and could whistle any note. Why? Alinor Frey, expert swordsman, husband of 4 centuries, familiar with every type of metalwork. He continues. He rattles off dozens of names, characteristics, without breaking eye contact. People, you see, just like your soldiers. Not mindless faces, not faceless monsters. He bares his teeth at me. You killed them. You, with your sword. All of them. And I swallow. His people were attacking my land. It was in defense. He tilts his face. Do your intentions matter when they're all dead? What was the alternative? Allow them to kill my own? Still, the names circle through my head. Children, families changed forever, lives lost. I never once thought about them. I never considered who they were beneath their helmets. Grim looks pleased, sensing my turmoil. He's trying to confuse me, trying to get me to sympathize with him. I will not feel empathy for my enemy. What game are you playing? I ask through my teeth. His grin is nothing short of poisonous, not a very fun one since it involves speaking to you, and not one with any goal other than getting you to see that everything you hate about me is in you, too. Page 67. Grim, as always, gets to be both where Oro is none. Grim is aware of the names of everyone killed. He shows empathy and compassion while Oro balks at the concept. Yet Grim has killed more people, proven himself to be stronger and more ruthless. When Oro kills people, it turns into the shameless revelation. When Grim kills people, he is both the unfeeling demon and the too-feeling soldier. He offers no mercy because he doesn't care about the lives around him, yet is simultaneously forced into this and thus faultless for his role in it. It doesn't work both ways. What does it leave for Oro in the middle? Buffoonery? Oro might equally name soldiers Grim killed, but he's just once more stunned into submission. It is true Oro and Grim are alike in this book. I didn't think of them as such beforehand, but as Grim says repeatedly during these chapters, they are similar. Eerily so, because so much of these two novellas work to give their lives a ridiculous amount of parallels. What Grim and Oro focus on in particular during this prison chats is the hatred of their fathers. Grim's father rules through fear. His father killed his mother, as in Nightshade tradition. As Grim says, "You see, I have no love for my father. We have that in common, you and I. Page 58. Oro asks Grim later about how, if he hates his father so much, why doesn't he just kill him? And his answer to that doesn't matter. What does is a later conversation, this one. You like it in here, don't you? I demand, changing the topic. He shrugs as much as he can with the chains weighing him down. It isn't so bad when a boring second son isn't tormenting me. Truth. Why? He leans his head back against the wall. My father isn't here. You would rather be in a prison than around your own father? I did not have the best relationship with my father, but I would have preferred his presence over this. Page 68. Oro, somehow, can't fathom why Grim would prefer to be in prison than around his evil father who forced him to massacre people. And it doesn't really matter, it's just another unforced error which turns the character's narrative and any hope of impactful prose into inconsistent mush. You might wonder about Oro and his father. Last we saw their relationship, Oro was dealing with a lifetime of his father never calling him son, never spending time with him, and openly treating him as a failure. Yet Oro was very affected by Grim's father killing his father, and would have preferred his father's company to jail, despite him choosing this jail, over his father's company previously. That was the last thing that occurred in their relationship that we saw. Capping out the prison conversations, I want to share what Grim says about love. It's a pre-callback to one of my favorite quotes in the series, this rambling and repetitive rant about love and fools from book 2. So let's start with that. It's really one of my favorite things from Nightshade. He shrugged a shoulder. It doesn't matter, he said. Love is for fools anyway. It makes people do foolish things. He looked at her and said, I do not intend to become a fool. That's from Nightshade, one of the many before chapters. It's such an edgy, ineloquent speech. I just find it extremely funny. And seeing his hot takes on tomfoolery return in this book, I really liked it. He shakes his head. No, fools exist, second son. I'm sitting right in front of one. I smirk. You think I'm a fool for loving people? He nods. Why? Because love, the kind people like you believe in, doesn't exist. Let me guess. You believe love is some disease, something that happens to you without your own free will. He scoffs. Like it isn't a decision you make. Like you don't get to decide whether to give someone else power over you. He frowns. Loving someone is allowing them to train the tip of their dagger on your heart at all times, and smiling about it. It's idiotic. I shake my head. For the first time since I've been in these prisons, I laugh, truly. I can't help myself. His voice is cutting. You think that's amusing, second son? I nod. I do. I think it's funny how you think you would be impervious to it, to love. He narrows his eyes at me. I am impervious to it, because I refuse to be a fool. Page 63. And I too wish that he'd use fool even more. What happens next is that Oro asks Grim up front if him being in prison is some sort of Nightshade plan, and he learns it isn't. Pretty much immediately, a child wanders into a monster-infested forest, and Oro decides to take Grim out of prison to help rescue her. She's gone to a place where shadow creatures lurk, but they know that she's still alive. Aster loves calling things creatures, usually ancient creatures, but I don't really think that she knows what she means by it half the time. Like, what makes these things shadow creatures? Where did they come from? They turn out to be giant undead and also skeletons in robes. Just some real level 1 necromancer dungeon mobs, but that just raises further questions. When Oro and Grim set out, Oro quizzes Grim about his motivations for helping. Oro appears paranoid and distrusting, while Grim is just calm and smooth as ever. I'm trying to understand why my cold-hearted enemy cares about a starling child. He turns. You think I don't care about a child just because she's from Lightlark? I shrug a shoulder. You didn't care about thousands of Lightlark soldiers. He bares his teeth. When we first invaded, we made our terms clear. Anyone who didn't want to die could surrender unharmed. The moment they set foot on that battlefield, they accepted the risk of death. We're past the Starling Castle now, then past the woods behind it. Do you think this will help you get out of the prisons? Free you? He sighs in a long-suffering way. I'm just trying to save a child. But now I'm hoping the midnight woods will kill you so I can be rid of your infernal presence. Truth. Both statements. Bastard. Page 82. Oro can't have shit. Not even a noble and good heart to serve as a comparison to the villain. What's interesting is that he invokes a point that has shown up in the series before, that no one would have to die if they simply surrendered. Grim says this in the second book to Isela. It's in my most despised scene in the series. This is Isela speaking. You are coming to kill everyone on the island. You will murder thousands of innocents just to get it. You sent a message of ruin, of destruction. No, I'm not. I warned everyone here, which is more than they deserve. They can either leave or join us. It is their choice. No one has to die. Do you really think anyone would give up their home without fighting? When fighting is futile? I do. It's Nightbane in the chapter Reunion. In both cases, Grim is diffusing the accusation of him being responsible for killing people by stating he wouldn't kill him if they just gave him what he wanted. It seems to be trying to paint Grim as merciful, and those he kills as fools for not recognizing Grim's inevitability. It is also said and never refuted that Grim killed people who surrendered to him, so I guess they had to do it before the battle started in order for it to count. I feel a little like I'm yelling at a villain for being a bad guy, so I just want to remind you how Grim exists narratively. Every bad thing he does, the books go out of their way to justify. He was forced to be like it. He can't help it. He has no emotions. He has too many emotions. He doesn't know how to love. He was saving Isela's life. He was making the right choice for Isela. Grim is the kind of man who thinks, if I invade a country, tell people to surrender and they don't, well, no one had to die. They chose to die. This is a callous bit of self-assurance to justify a hostile and evil act. Yet Grim does so twice, and I do not believe the books are all aware that this reasoning makes him worse, not better. Oro and Grim arrive at the Shadow Monster Forest, and they spot the lost child. She's on an island in the middle of a lake, and as these swarms of undead emerge, wraiths are flying around and sucking out her life force. It's all a bit vague, even as the fight scene that results is tediously long. What is clear is that Oro is weak, and Grim is strong. At my side, Grim battles with his shadows, demolishing everything in his path. Unlike my flames, the shadow creatures disappear for longer against his power. Some of them don't return at all, as if permanently extinguished. Page 84. Which is an exciting new twist on the idea of how most people write pretty much anything. The power of light and fire, it does nothing against darkness. It's weaker, actually, than just using more darkness. Oro rushes ahead while Grim fights the horde, but Oro fails. Again and again. He tries to fly, but he's dragged down to the ground. He creates an ice bridge, but is tripped and slams against the ice. He creates an energy shield that repels them, but is immediately overwhelmed again. He freezes the entire lake in a great show of power, but more come from the forest and overwhelm him again. This time, he's too weak to fight back and is utterly surrounded. Before a single claw or tooth can reach me, the world goes dark as endless night, and I'm forced across the ice by a powerful wave of shadows. When my vision clears, the creatures are gone. Every one of them. Gone. Reduced to ash. And Grim is carrying the child across the frozen lake. I stare at him. For moments, I just stare. All of them. He killed all of them. And there isn't a scratch on him. He hands the girl to me. She needs a healer. Page 86 to 87. Oh, look. Grim saved the day without one injury and now cares more about the child's well-being than anything else. And Oro contributed nothing. In the book named Oro. What we have here is an action sequence which is wholly new to canon, where Aster might have written anything, and she made Grim the hero of Oro's story. For how long the chapter takes, I was beginning to think Oro was going to get a moment here. He's thinking words of encouragement from his friends and his mother. He's digging deep to try new powers and do anything to save this child. This child he has known since birth. This is the beloved daughter of his brother's guardian, a woman Oro has known his entire life and views as a maternal figure. This is a moment which ought to be Oro's for so many reasons, but it belongs to Grimm, because Grimm is the most powerful, special, empathetic, heroic villain of all time. When Oro takes too long staring in shock, Grimm growls in anger about the child's need for medical attention and to stop wasting time. And he's right. He's always right, isn't he? After this, Grimm is redeemed. Oro arranges for him to be let out of jail, and he lives on Lightlark as a citizen for an uncertain number of years. He joins Oro's friend group and seems harmless. Oro and Grimm's friendship era is a part of the Lightlark history I think fans and haters alike would find interesting, and I was really looking forward to see their relationship unfold. Unfortunately, in both novellas, this time period is hastily avoided. It's a chapter here, it's like maybe 2 chapters here, it's half of one in Grimm. We get little sense of Oro and Grimm's friendship beyond Oro's insistence that they aren't friends, and by the end he's like, maybe we're friends, but it's nothing. There's no hint of a bond, let alone a tragic homoerotic closeness. If anything, the narrative is more concerned with assuring the reader of their robust, strictly hetero sexuality. Look at them, throwing themselves at him, like his family isn't responsible for killing thousands of us. Enya rolls her eyes and throws her drink back. She glares at me. I'll never forgive you for letting him out. She's lying. Me neither, Zed says, scowling, if only because he's making life here impossible for the rest of us. More specifically, Zed means taking a woman home has become impossible, because most of them seem intent on betting the nightshade. He's sitting at a corner of Juniper's bar, holding a drink the barkeep made especially for him. Women surround the table, trying to engage him in conversation. They turn their attention to me as I approach. I don't miss how they look at me, hungrily, the same way they look at Grimshaw. Some speak to me, but they scurry away as I take a seat next to the nightshade. Not interested in any of them? He asks, amused, as he takes a long sip of his drink. Not if they're interested in you. My chair groans as I lean back. Makes me question their judgment. He barks out a laugh. Then I would say most of the available women on this island should be off limits to you. I frown in disgust as I take a sip of my drink. Right. You only sleep with each of them once. How generous of you to spread yourself around like that. He shrugs. I have considered myself selfish and charitable. And modest. How could I forget? Page 90 to 91. My favorite side character in these novellas is one I have yet to discuss, who will shine brightest during Grimm's story, but is present here. I call this character the amorphous blob of faceless wenches. Both Oro and Grimm, but especially Grimm, often encounter this horde of hussies desperate for their attention. The book is keen to assure us both men bone down often, and is keener to promise us these women are not individuals in any sense. Everyone wants to have sex with Grimm, and sometimes Oro, but Grimm and Oro do not want to have sex with any individual woman, only this nondescript swarm. What I mean by this is that, of course, Isela is the only woman Grimm and Oro are allowed to be truly attracted to, the only woman who has a name and a face and is desirable rather than available, the first and only woman either man has ever wanted in any sense. Both men are somewhere over 500 when they meet Isela, and these prequels make it explicitly clear that while they have had sex hundreds of times, they have never had any kind of relationship with a woman. They both have never had a crush or tried a relationship that didn't work out. They have no exes. They've never had a friend with benefits or a repeated sexual partner. Both men are completely uninterested in romance, with Oro sounding like he might be aromantic. She's pretty, Enya whispers before taking another sip. I suppose so. I look, waiting for a tug, a feeling. I get nothing, just a vague attraction. I might have laughed at Grimm's assessment of love, but in a twisted way, I agree with him. I don't believe in love at first sight. Romantic love could never be greater than the love I have for my friends. Attraction, sure. Sex is great. But talking to one another for hours? Caring enough to collect details about them? Choosing to spend time with them over your friends? Never. Page 74. Despite Oro's assurance that he finds sex to be, quote, great, Grimm and him often sound disinterested in it, Both are surrounded by nondescript legions of willing women and thus constantly have sex, yet anytime it is brought up they sound rather detached from the act. It is something to do, something they are insistent on thinking of as good, but there is a distinct lack of excitement around the idea. It is something they do. We haven't reached Isela yet, thanks the heavens for that, but all of this is, of course, set up to make her more important. Oro sounds aromantic, but he will be in love with Isela at first sight. Grim emotionlessly is banging his way through every woman in the world, but the moment he sees Isela, he desires no one else ever again. The amorphous blob of faceless wenches exists to show us Grim and Oro are normal men who like women, only, who can have any woman they want, because every woman wants them, but who love and desire Isela exclusively from the moment they see her, because Isela is more attractive, more beautiful, more lovable than every other woman they have ever met in over 500 years of life. Speaking of women, I want to point towards Enya again. Zed complains about every woman wanting to sleep with Grim, but Enya does not. Enya calls a girl pretty, but in that case she is merely encouraging Oro. Enya's sexuality is only notable in that she is one of the few LGBT plus characters in the series. It comes up explicitly in the text once during Nightbane. Still, this novella seems chock full of places where Enya being a lesbian could quite naturally come up, and it never does. At one point, Enya asks this. Enya turns to me. When are you gonna marry? I shoot her a look. She shrugs and takes another sip of her drink. What? I'm tired of people assuming we're together. When women aren't drooling over you, they're glaring at me. I would say Enya's exaggerating, but I'm not impervious to the looks, the whispers. And it would be nice to have another woman in the group. Enya frowns at us. No offense, but sometimes you all stink, and maybe if another woman was here to tell you, you'd believe me. Zed's smile is poisonous. We stink because we actually move all day, instead of letting our flames fight for us. At that, a wisp of flame uncurls from Enya's palm, knocking one of Zed's drinks to the side. Before it spills on Calder, he freezes it, and it falls to the table, shattering. Zed pops a piece of the frozen drink in his mouth, and Enya rolls her eyes. Well, Enya asks, turning to me again, when can I expect a new best friend? Preferably one who doesn't eat table drink? Page 73. The way Enya talks about women suggests that she is fully dependent on her male friends to acquire them. She's the beleaguered only girl in the friend group who wants a bestie who is clean and has manners. Sure, it's clear she's not a romantic prospect for any of her friends, but this seems to have placed her in a niche of sister, stuck with these lads and holding out hope she can get a girl, friend, to do makeup with. Enya is a badass warrior with a hobby for civic management. She ought to be polling ladies left and right. Because she knows the date of her death, she doesn't want a long-term relationship. But you're telling me she hasn't got a single female friend who is down with a casual, platonic, but sexual relationship, or just even like a brief fling? I highlight this to draw a contrast between it and the sexuality of Oro and Grim. Enya feels neutered while the men are excessive, yet both draw a clear distinction between sex and a relationship. She, Grim, and Oro all reject romantic relationships. By doing so, according to Lightlark, they reject all relationships. Just no friends with benefits, no affairs that blur platonic romantic, no friendship or rivalry born from hundreds of years of casual sex. All of this exists to place importance on the relationship. The one true, good, romantic, and sexual eventuality which becomes marriage and children. Enya does not desire marriage, and is certain to die in the climax of the 5th book, so she will never achieve the relationship, and her sexuality before that point does not matter. Grim and Oro will enter the relationship when they meet Isela, and so all the sex before then does not matter, and must be discussed. I mean, how else would we know that Isela is the most beautiful, lovable, attractive, and best in bed woman that ever existed if we didn't have all those previous ones to compare it to? But speaking of women, Oro's brother Egan is engaged to Aurora. Deep Lightlarkers will recall that this is what leads to the Centennial Curse. Egan cheats on Aurora with the wildling Violet. Aurora finds out and the curses begin. This prequel is a chance to flesh out this inciting incident of the 1st book, and like every opportunity Aster has been presented thus far, It is hurried through without much thought. Aurora is initially discussed in a manner that I find curious. This is Enya speaking first. Your brother is betrothed. To who? Aurora. Zed howls in laughter. Oh no, your brother surely doesn't deserve that. Enya sighs. It's no secret she's been infatuated with him for a while. She's putting it lightly. The Starling ruler has trailed my brother around for as long as I can remember. Back when we were children, she was only an heir. Then her parents died in a freak accident, an explosion in the Starling Castle stables when they were preparing for a ride. In the blink of an eye, Aurora became one of the youngest rulers in history. I still think she killed them, Zed says, then takes a sip of his new drink. Calder shoots him a look. Zed lifts his hands, palms to the air. What? She wouldn't be the first to kill for power. Enya shakes her head. No, we heard her, me and Oro, right before her crowning ceremony. She was a wreck, sobbing, still mourning her parents. And Egan was holding her as she cried in his arms. Page 72. What we know of Aurora's backstory is primarily exposed to us during her long monologue at the end of the first book. This is all new information, which has no relevance to any of it. Aurora is viewed as young, clingy, and unpleasant by her peers. She's been in love with Egan her whole life, and for some reason, Zed thinks she might have murdered her parents as a young child. Egan does not love Aurora, and Oro calls him out for arranging this political marriage with someone he is aware truly loves him. Egan holds off the marriage for months, and Oro eventually discovers that Egan is having an affair with Violet. Violet and Aurora are best friends. Egan truly loves Violet, but remains engaged to Aurora. Oro demands his brother either secure the marriage and end the affair or break the engagement. Instead, Egan continues both for another decade. In this, Egan is clearly in the wrong. So why does the book go out of its way to tell us how annoying Aurora is? To me, this feels like lore built not with Aurora in mind, but with Aurora's fate. We know Aurora is evil. Rather than humanize her character, Aster is choosing to confirm it. She sucks in the future, so she's always sucked. Why have sympathy for the villain who's going to fall in a hole in a few hundred years? Aurora kills Violet and attempts a small curse which goes incredibly wrong. We can agree Aurora killing someone and seemingly trying to curse all wildlings is a bad thing. But surely we can agree she's a bit of a victim here too? She was in love with someone who agreed to marry her, then delayed that marriage for over a decade. The whole time he was having an affair with her best friend. It was political, but he knew the whole time it wasn't political to Aurora. The night before his death, Egan told Oro he planned to step down as king, call off the marriage, and be with Violet. I don't think Aurora ever learned any of this, but it's yet another cruel act. He strung this girl along for so long, ignored her feelings, and then was prepared to drop her and seek his true happy ending. In the aftermath of the curses, Aurora spirals into generic villainhood, scheming to take over all the realms because marrying Egan would have given her that. At some point, though, she was human, and I don't like how the novellas try to skip over that. No one likes her from the start. She doesn't appear at any point, she certainly never speaks, and I guess that just makes it all easier. The night before Aurora causes the curses, the chapter starts with a note. 10 years later. This is that first instance of the book specifying a time skip, and it's why I'm so confident about this decade thing. The book could have said it had been many years, as it has many times before, yet it specifies a decade here, as if it has particular import. It does not. It's as if the editor suddenly woke up from a coma, managed to sputter out one note about consistency, and promptly fell back into a dreamless sleep. Egan tells Oro here that he plans to make Oro king. Oro dislikes this idea, but chats of Grim, and he starts to like the thought because he sees it as an opportunity for peace. He and Grim could work together, once and for all, bringing down Grim's evil dad and making a better world. Oro calls Grim his friend, and they shake on it. It's all very sincere and sweet, except then the curses occur immediately the next morning. Oro rushes downstairs that morning, he sees many people dying, and he immediately blames Grim. I mean, curses are a nightshade thing after all, but it's such a quick thing. And here's what it looks like in text. Grim's eyes are sharp. I know how this looks, he says, his hands outstretched in front of him. This isn't my fault. The second the words leave his mouth, I feel the lie. It's twisted, edged slightly in truth, but the bitterness is enough. Page 100 to 101. Oro blaming Grim for the curses is one of the most important plot points in the series. It is why they are enemies when we first encounter them, why they continue to hate each other. It is why Nightshade remains at odds with Lightlark, and why there is no peace as they both once desired. Oro blaming Grim for the curses, however, is what can only be described as a fundamental error with the text itself. It is a plot hole in that it is impossible and should not have occurred. You see, I read the other novella. Perhaps Aster did not anticipate this, as she clearly didn't do that herself, but I compared the events of these novellas against each other. This isn't my fault, Grim says. Oro reads it as a lie edged with an edge of truth. But it isn't his fault. Either Oro's flair is wrong, which should be impossible and has never occurred before or since, or it's a plot hole, because there is no manner in which Grimm saying, this isn't my fault, is a lie. Before we had the prequels, I would have bought this. Aurora explains in the first book that she seduced Grimm into getting her the Heart of Lightlark, a powerful magic flower that she used to create the curses. Grimm didn't cause the curses, but he enabled it by helping Aurora. It wasn't his fault, but it is a little bit. This makes sense for Oro's reading. But in the novella Grim, there are glimmers of something resembling happiness, peace, a life without bloodshed. Nearly 2 decades pass like this, and then a wildling comes to my room, seeking me out. She demands a flower on the remnants of Night Isle. Fine. It's something to do. I find it for her and give it to her and have her, and it's fine. Nothing memorable or enough to feel much of anything. I don't stay. I never stay. I'm asleep in my own bed hours later when I hear it. One scream. Another. Then the world is screaming. I turn the corner and almost crash into someone kneeling on the floor. Oro, my friend. My only friend. Then his fiery rage as he looks at me. He looks like he wants to kill me. I blink. He hasn't looked at me like that, in that way for years. Just yesterday, we were sitting side by side on a cliff, planning a more hopeful future for both our realms. Now, where there was once trust and friendship, I just feel pure and utter hatred. He thinks I did this. He thinks I'm responsible for all these deaths. Could it be my father? It's a Nightshade curse. Could my father have sent someone else? Did he grow tired of my increasingly infrequent visits and drawn-out strategies? It wasn't me, but his mind is made up. It's not just our people that die today. Our friendship dies too. Forever. That's page 33 of Grimm. I had to trim like a ridiculous amount of fragments from that section, but here's what this tells us. 1. Grimm did not know he was helping Aurora. He did not know the flower he got was important or powerful. He did not know the flower was used to cause this. It is entirely incidental. 2. Grimm has a passing thought his father might be responsible, but this still would not be his fault. His father is evil. He did not do anything to prompt his father to act or give him the ability to cause these curses at this time. Grimm saying, "This isn't my fault," is unequivocally true, yet Oro's magic lie detector says otherwise, and so their friendship and any hope of peace breaks forever. This is such a frustrating plot hole because it is truly the crux of their relationship, and it isn't so much a book ruiner as simply a mistake, easily avoidable. Could have been written in so many ways to make it a miscommunication, or indeed partly Grimm's fault, yet instead it is a jagged error, creating just enough friction to frustrate. I think the reason this occurred is easy to spot too, and it lies within the bit of Grimm that I shared. Did you notice how Aurora was written? I'm gonna bring it up again. Nearly 2 decades pass like this, and then a wildling comes to my room, seeking me out. She demands a flower on the remnants of Night Isle. Fine, it's something to do. I find it for her, and give it to her, and have her, and it's fine. Nothing memorable, or enough to feel much of anything at all. That's page 32 of Grimm. My beloved amorphous faceless wenchwoman returns, except this is Aurora, and this is the act which changes everything. In the first book, Aurora discusses the incident in this way. I was so angry. I used my shape-shifting flair to change into a beautiful wildling and convince this fool, she looks pointedly at Grim, that he would have me that night if he gave me the most beautiful flower on the island, one I knew had bloomed on the remnants of Night Isle just weeks prior, the heart of Lightlark, something Egan had told me about as children. I tracked it, intending for it to be a wedding gift. Instead, Grim unknowingly unlocked the heart for me to use. That's the chapter choice in Lightlark. Aurora's story doesn't place any culpability on Grim, but leaves room for it. Aurora is seducing him and telling him of a specific flower. If he knew or suspected in any way the flower was powerful, then him having any culpability for the curses would make sense. But Grimm's story is detached. It is explicitly clear he was not seduced by her, that he wasn't attracted to her, that the sex wasn't good, and he didn't care. It's all incidental and meaningless, except this is one of the most meaningful incidents in the plot. Aster needs to assure the reader Grim did not enjoy sex or feel tempted by anyone until he met Isela. In doing so, he's simply a background patsy in the incident which marks him as the true villain in everyone's eyes for the next 500 years. Oro swears vengeance against Grim after this, but allows him to flee. It's a big dramatic ending with Oro saying his heart is frozen and it would be 500 years before it thawed. Things I would have liked to see about the day the centennial curse was cast include the oracle's prophecy being read, the decision by all current rulers to kill themselves as part of that, and perhaps an explanation why the prophecy is interpreted by all to promise great power when it just absolutely does not. I want these things because they would be interesting, and would serve to patch holes in the world and narrative rather than create them. I did not receive them, because it's Isela time, baby. Oh god. The rest of Oro's novella is an approximate summary of the first book of the Lightlark series. I say summary rather than retelling because the plot becomes precisely that. Things which occurred in Lightlark, so thinly present their primary purpose becomes reminding you how badly plotted that first book even was. Lightlark as a series is all about fetch quests, but that first book truly was a series of people looking for a flower, not finding it, and trying again, all while working off of a baseless assumptions about a poorly written prophecy. But I guess we'll get there a little bit later. First, Oro is watching the rulers arrive for the centennial. Another ruler arrives. Wildling. Her long, ridiculously sheer dress makes that obvious. I sigh, remembering the string of wildlings I've had to deal with over the centuries. All of them with the same plan, to try and seduce me into loving them so they can have access to my power. Will hers be the same? Don't even bother, I want to tell her. I won't even look at you twice. It's not entirely their faults. They don't know I can see their advances as a lie. Perhaps without my flair, their efforts wouldn't be so obvious. As if I have time for something as selfish as love. As if any of us do. As if she would be the one to capture my notice anyway. It may not be fair to the wildling, but it's hard not to look at her and immediately think of Violet, the ancestor she never even knew. The day of the curses, I vowed to never fall in love. Love made even my brother into a fool. Page 106. Hey look, my favorite character returns, this time an amorphous string of wildling wenches. Except, that doesn't seem quite right, does it? There's more going on here than you likely remember, but there's something quite off about this line. Firstly, there have been multiple wildling rulers across the last 4 centennials. Every other realm retained a singular ruler during this time. Wildling women are cursed to attempt to kill whoever they fall in love with. All previous rulers had a child, then died. Are we to presume it's because of the curse? That they're these fierce warrior queens, yet they repeatedly die to their boyfriends acting in self-defense? You might be protesting right now that the answer lies in the text. I mean, all of them with the same plan, to try and seduce me into loving them so they can have access to my power. Aurora killed Isela's parents and groomed her for exactly what Oro is wary of. This text merely implies that she did this with the previous generations. Except she didn't. Aurora is quite clear in Lightlark that Isela's existence was a stroke of luck. She had a very different plan until then. Here's a quote on it, Aurora speaking to Oro in the beginning. Even with a new face, a new personality, every centennial you always rejected my advances. An untrusting king indeed. Egan had told me about the bondmaker. I began searching for it every centennial. But even if I was able to trick you, king, into using it with me, I would receive just 4 of the 6 abilities. A ruler can only use the bondmaker to gain ability once and lose ability once. I needed a way to get all 6 powers in one go. And that's where you come in, little bird. Isela swallowed. It was all luck, really. I saw my chance to get all 6 powers and planned accordingly. That's the chapter choice in Lightlark. So, interestingly, there was a line of starling rulers desperate to seduce Oro for his powers, whose lies he always saw through. It makes sense outside of being Aurora's secret scheme. I mean, starlings only live to 25 and are considered such a weakened realm that they are often apparently abducted into slavery. A last-ditch effort by their ruler, each centennial, to consolidate power with the Sunling King makes sense. It is plausible enough that Oro would have little reason to suspect it was actually the same shape-shifting woman each time. Though how it never became suspicious that they were all lying about their name, age, and history, that continues to elude. But it actually fits in the world building that he would have just dismissed all of these starling seductresses and just not thought deeper about it. And Celeste represents a change in this line of seducing starlings, yet this is never mentioned by Oro. The wildlings are. And the reason is, unfortunately, obvious, because Isela isn't like other girls. Like, this will be a theme repeated again and again across the parts of these novellas containing her. Unlike her ancestors, Isela isn't a wildling trying to seduce him. Unlike the woman of his island, Isela isn't a woman eager to immediately sleep with him. Oro sneers a bit at her, not taking any notice of her as particularly beautiful, but this will be rectified immediately. Unlike other women, though, Isela is beautiful. She's sexy, but she's not forcing it. She's sexual, but she's not a whore. She's everything better than everyone else. And so, like a page later in the chapter, Isela sings, and it immediately enraptures Oro. She falls off a cliff and he saves her. This is that same chapter as The Arrival, because apparently we couldn't allow Oro to have a negative opinion of Isela for longer than a few paragraphs. I can still let her die. No, I can't. For some reason, I just can't. I absorb some of the water covering us, swirl it in my palm, and gently place it against her head. My thumb, inexplicably, swipes down her temple. It doesn't take long for the wound to heal and for the bleeding to stop. I should leave, but I stay, watching as her skin slowly regains its glow, as her cheeks flush a gentle pink like the petal of a flower. It's enough to assure me she'll be okay, but I can't stop staring, studying. I study the way her lashes fan out against her cheeks. I study the perfect Cupid's bow arch of her slightly parted lips. I study her dark hair, long and fanned out across my lap. I make a map of her in my mind. Her face, I admit, is just as striking as her voice. I shouldn't have saved her. I shouldn't have interfered this early in the centennial, but I couldn't stop myself. This world has extinguished too many beautiful things, I say, watching the color fully return to her face. I didn't want you to be one of them. Page 110. Isela then becomes Oro's obsession. He hears her singing in his head constantly. And just, by the way, did you remember that she sung? Because I had entirely forgot how it was stressed so much in the first book that she was an incredible singer, that singing was something that she loved to do, because I would swear it has not come up in any of the books after the first one. But the way that Isela lives inside of Oro's mind is medically concerning. She is truly an infection, and not in the flowery metaphor way that the book constantly compares her to a poison. I mean that I have sincere worries for Oro based on his behavior after listening to a woman sing once. When they duel each other, his arm is sliced open by Cleo because he's so distracted from watching Isla fight a few minutes ago. When it comes time to duel Isla, he loses because he makes eye contact. She swings her blade and I stop it, studying her more closely, studying the differences from the last time I gazed upon her, because this is different. This isn't the poised ruler sitting with perfect posture at the table, or the carefree ruler singing on her balcony. No, this is a different side to her. Her full top lip is curled back in a snarl. Her eyes are narrowed and gleaming with focus, and those eyes, green. Her eyes are green, and I never thought a color could send a chill down my spine until two green eyes pinned me in place and made me forget my name, made me forget my crown, made me forget her blade just inches from my heart. Because that green, it's the green of my favorite place, that beach I escaped to in my dreams, and I have a sinking feeling she's about to fill all of them. No, what am I thinking? Have I lost my mind? Page 116 to 117. Alex Astor, of course, does not understand how fights work. One look at Isela, and this war-scarred general with 500 years of training loses his mind. He's shocked to notice when Isela is fighting, she's fighting, and that is different from being poised or relaxed. He's awestruck by her eye color. He loses all instincts and thoughts of battle because there's a woman he met yesterday nearby. Like, fights are fast and brutal things. The purpose of training is not to unlock some secret high power techniques which instantly win you fights. It's to build a portfolio of actions that you can call on instinctively. Your opponent tries X move, and because of Y circumstances, you know that Z is your best action. There is little space to think because you train away as much of that as possible. So Oro's stupor concerns me. I already know too much about her. Her expressions and movements. I've been watching her too closely. Her request is not something I should deny, not in front of all these people. So I smooth my face, ridding it of expression. I bury my emotions the way I have every single day for centuries. I rise. I offer my hand. It feels like I've already given her so much more. She takes it, and my lips involuntarily part. I feel my eyes narrow. A shock has gone through my arm, right to my chest. She doesn't notice my reaction. She doesn't even look at me as she leads me to the center of the room. Stand there, she orders. I should be outraged or at least irritated, but I'm too shocked to do anything other than obey. She drops my hand and crosses the room. Using clumsy fingers, she sheds her rings, then removes her gloves. She fetches a pin from her hair, and a tendril comes loose, falling across her cheek. I shouldn't be watching so closely. I shouldn't be admiring how the light hits her hair to reveal a darker shades and a few golden strands. What is wrong with me? If I wasn't distracted, I would have immediately seen that the pin isn't a pin at all, but a throwing star. A weapon. I blink, again feeling that strange mix of awe and anger. Page 122 to 123. Oro, buddy, are you okay? You really, really don't seem to be. This is beyond attraction. If this was a film, all audio but Isela's muffled voice would disappear, and there'd be a loud, high-pitched ringing as Oro moves in slow motion, incapable of doing anything other than stand in shock with his mouth open, because a woman he met yesterday touched his hand. The way Oro was affected by Isela made me question if there was some sort of magic involved, that this was a true soulmate bond or whatever activating, because I truly felt at a loss about how else to understand Oro's mind. Canon has yet to confirm such a thing, but I really began to go mad, like just certain that there had to be some external influence at play, because surely even Alex Astor can recognize how weirdly brain dead she's made this love interest. Yeah, like, you know what would make a good romance? A king who suppresses his emotions even to himself, who denies himself everything but duty, who is not impressed with this young wildling woman at all, but comes to find a connection with her, which breaks all that down. The story of a freak who falls into obsessive love and lust at second sight with a random girl for reasons which elude him and the reader is a lot less romantic. I watch as she pushes the fabric from her eyes, as those green eyes fill with pride, as they fill with fire, and it's as if I can't move. She has me rooted in place, staring into green eyes like they are a maze I wouldn't mind getting lost in, like they are woods I could wander for hours. Her eyes are gleaming like a forest on fire, and I watch and watch, ready to be swept up in her blaze. It's been centuries since I've seen someone so determined, someone whose fire hasn't been extinguished by this cruel world. She smirks. And that contempt for my crown, it should make my blood boil, but it doesn't. At least, not in the way she likely intended. She's strutting toward me, her stride full of confidence. She slowly bends down to lift my crown. "You dropped this," she whispers, so only I can hear it, and her voice slinks down my spine, makes me swallow. I take it from her, hardly registering its weight in my hand. Page 124. In between Oro losing his mind about Isela, Enya and his friends pop into his room and chat. And I think this is pretty funny. Like, Enya and company didn't exist in Lightlark, likely not even in Aster's mind, but they ought to have been around. Like, in the sense of canon and what makes sense, they existed at that point. Why weren't they at the Centennial? So thus, they've been written in as sideline commentators, showing up in between canon scenes to weigh in on what's going on while remaining conspicuously absent from the plot. Other characters also appear for brief conversations, but there's nothing particularly insightful or interesting that's getting discussed. However, one thing with Cleo did catch my eye. It's no secret that the Moonling's curse is one of the milder ones. It only affects Moonlings foolish enough to go near the sea on a full moon. Page 127. So I am increasingly certain that Aster has a habit of responding to criticism in her sequels. It's just occurred far too many times now to be pure coincidence. The name Starstick was mocked in the first book, and so in the second, Grimm lampshades this name as ridiculous. Lynx is bizarrely the name of a Black Panther from the second book. So in the third book, Grimm lampshades this as odd, and Isela snaps back how he likes his name. The immovable marriage necklace was clearly meant to only be for women, yet in the third book, it is apparently traditional for men to get one too. In the first book, Isela easily bests Grimm and Oro by the arena trial, but in later books, we learn that Grimm let her win, and Oro was dumbstruck by her eyes, and that's how she won. The Moonling Curse is something that I made fun of because it isn't that big of a deal. I talked about how they just need to track the moon and they'd be fine, how it clearly took less than a moon cycle to sail to another island on the plane of Lightlark because they made it to the Lightlark Island in the first place. Despite me pointing this out, here is how it is actually spoken of in the first book. Moonling's curse meant that every full moon, the sea claimed dozens of lives from their realm, drowning anyone who found themselves too close to the coast. It made faraway trade nearly impossible, made living near the ocean a danger, and had completely crippled the Moonling's economy. That's Lightlark chapter Blood. The Moonling curse meant that every full moon, the sea sought out Moonling blood. Ships were cracked in half by 100-foot waves. Girls were swept off the cliffs by monstrous surges. The sea swallowed them, then went still. That's Lightlark chapter Castle. What I want to highlight here is not that the Moonling curse is actually devastating. I stand by my statement. Stop going to the coast on Murder Moon Night. What I am struck by is the change in its portrayal from a deadly curse to be taken seriously, as all of Lightlark's curses were, even the one that just made people flightless, to a mild joke naysayers called it out as. It is mild, but there is something sad, pathetic feels too mean, sad about an author seeming so affected by the critiques of petty details as if to address them in canon. I don't know that that's 100% what this is, but it really did stood out to me. And, it's also all that, and there's just far more important issues to address. Such as Oro's continued descent into wretchedness. He begins to stalk Isela at night, flying unseen above her. He loses control the most when he is looking at Isela, but she remains a specter in his thoughts at all times. Oro doesn't seem to know why he feels this way, something which is a major obstacle in getting the reader to care. He praises her for her beauty, her power, intelligence, skill, fire, determination, cunning, beauty, and more. He also calls her a liar, worries if he can trust her, worries him saving her life is a mistake. Soon he will blossom to hating her, while remaining ever obsessed. Something which is absent for a very long time from all of this is Isela herself. Like, she is omnipresent, obnoxiously so, but Oro's thoughts dominate so many words, it is hard to spot Isela's personhood in between. She speaks during the Crown trial, but that is actually the first time that she's attributed dialogue. It's 20 pages after her first appearance, and it's another 20 pages until she and Oro have an actual brief conversation. 20 pages isn't a lot, but also, like, in this book, they're going through a lot of scenes and events and plot things very quickly. So, like, the first chapter is, like, the arrival of the Centennial and, like, 2 trials. Like, they're moving through events so much that those 20 pages are covering a lot of time for Isela to not actually speak. Like, okay. So Isela does not feel like a well-rounded character at the best of times, but the way that she exists in this part of the novella it truly turns her into an object. You do not get any sense this is a romance unfolding, that she has connected with Oro on any level to justify his feelings. Instead, it is just that he's a creep, and this ancient immortal memorizing every detail about a girl like 530 years his junior who has spoken 4 sentences to him. She's disguised, but I'd know her anywhere, in any color, in any clothing. The way she moves is seared into my very soul. I've memorized her like she's a map, and I'm a traveler. I've studied her like she's a text, and I'm a scholar. I'm becoming a damned expert in her. And yet, I get the sense I could study her forever and never tire. I am losing my mind. I am well aware, but I can't get that image out of my head. Her in my favorite place, her eyes full of fire, the same way they were when she knocked the crown from my head. The fire in her has lit a fire in me, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to ignite or burn. I can't trust her. She has so many secrets. She could be working with Grim. Tonight, she's disguising herself as a skyling, and I'm going to find out why. I follow from above as she makes her way across the mainland, determination plain on her face. Several times I want to land right in front of her and ask what she's doing. I want to see what she'll say. If I'm honest with myself, I just want to hear her voice. Even if it's when she's lying to me. That voice. It's a curse. Page 134 to 135. That voice. That voice, it's a curse. That voice which has barely appeared in text, which has never exchanged on page so much as a greeting. Like, you will remember when I began this review saying how horribly this novella transforms Oro's character, and I hope you're finally getting the picture. It will just get worse, but I have this endless supply of lunatic ramblings like this. These would not appeal to me even if Oro and Isela were well-sketched characters of a compelling romance, and lacking both, I can only grimace. "Would you make me a fire?" she says. Her request fills me with irritation. Stop talking to me. Your voice is already in my head far too much. Stop asking things of me, I want to say. I'm afraid of what I'll give you. Page 138. That voice in his head, her voice, that voice which is missing from their interactions. Stop talking to me, he says the second time she speaks to him. Of course, we know that they have previously spoken more because that's what occurs in Lightlark. But this isn't Lightlark, and so we're left with this half image of things that is just so unsettling, too much to ignore. The plot of Lightlark, though, it judders forward to the points that the rulers have to divide into teams. Oro chooses Isela, and somehow his personality just really takes a turn here. Oro, the old king conceal don't feel, he turns from a love-struck obsessive to an entitled baby incel the moment he has a real conversation with her. So this is long, and I know I'm quoting a lot, but that's just not going to stop anytime soon. You have to see this. You have to hear this. She has the nerve to look annoyed. Do you normally call upon rulers at midnight? If I needed a reminder that she gets on my nerves, this is it. May I enter? Her voice all but announces her disappointment over being paired together. I suppose. She steps aside and I walk in, expecting to see everything she's been hiding. Instead, I find mess. Clothes everywhere. Endless cups of half-drunk tea. The door clicks shut and I find her there, looking at me not with the respect I've come to expect as king, but with irritation. Yes? She asks, her tone dripping disdain. Regret. I'm already feeling its teeth sink into me. Best to get this over with. I would like to make a deal. Her expression remains unchanged, but I hear the unease in her voice as she asks, Oh, what is it you propose? That voice, always beautiful, even when her words are dripping poison. I clear off a chair. May I ask, even though this is my own damned castle. She nods, still glaring at me, and I take a seat. This is going to be pleasant. I can already tell. As a pair, I cannot harm you. It's part of the rules to encourage working together. And if you help me find what I seek, I will do my best to protect you from the other rulers as well. I find it to be a fair proposition. I'm pleased with myself. I sit back in my chair, awaiting gratitude. Instead, her look is withering. I blink. Did she not realize I've just offered her a lifeline in this competition? Did she not realize I'm saving her? Her anger makes me angry. I shouldn't have come to her room. I shouldn't have believed the wildling could be reasonable. She's captivating and fascinating to watch. She's a constantly evolving mystery. She has eyes that rival any of this world's beauty. She's also fucking irritating. You want to protect me? She says, looking me up and down with pure and utter disdain. I thought you were dying. Yes, so very irritating. My own anger flares. I could feel it heating my skin. I grip the side of her chair so hard, I think I might break it. Does she think this is all a joke? Did she not realize my death will doom thousands? Is it a deal or not, wildling? I spit out. That only makes her smirk. And that just angers me more. Page 148 to 149. Oro, as he teams up with Isela, is at any moment a second away from calling her a goddamn annoying bitch. He does not, but that is the vitriol constant in his voice. Like, don't worry, he still finds her captivating, inspiring, perfect, sexy, and the most important being in the universe. He simply also thinks she's stupid and irritating and should be worshipping the ground he walks on. I truly hope Aster doesn't think any of this is appealing. But even as I say that, I suppose I hope she does. Because the alternative is that she wrote Oro this gross on purpose in order to drive fans away. I hate this childish idiot even more than he hates the woman he's in love with. No, she's definitely not using her powers on me. Because instead of beguiling me, she's infuriating me. She won't stop talking. She won't stop asking questions. I'm beginning to question my own sanity. To question how someone can be so captivating and irritating at the same time. To question whether breaking the curses is worth this at all. It is, of course it is, but that doesn't make spending time with her any easier. Are you going to ignore me? She finally says at my back. I keep walking, because yes, that was the plan. Then I hear her stop. Dramatics. Always so damned dramatic. I turn around to ask her if she's just going to be this irritating for the entire journey, but she's already speaking. Just because you asked me to wear this, she says, and asked me not to wear this, she reaches up and does the unthinkable. She fucking flicks my crown. Does it mean I'm not also the ruler of a realm? You will treat me with respect, king. She manages to make my title sound ridiculous. No one, in centuries, has dared speak to me this way. Page 152. There is, of course, a simple narrative solution to this, one much more present in the original book. Oro should have hated Isela from the start and developed feelings later. If he had no respect for her until they pair up, if he didn't find her captivatingly beautiful, if she wasn't instantly his sole reason to live, that would make it less uncomfortable to read his petty disgust with her existence. They could fall in love slowly, and he could see her as truly beautiful rather than his perspective of her as a temptress. Like, he could come to see her as a person, respect her, be inspired by her, and then looking at where he began, it would feel all the more significant. It would be enemies to lovers. You know, you get it. But the novella does not do this, and I've told you why plenty. The status quo of Isela's brilliance cannot be questioned, so she must be everything to Oro and the dirt under his boots at the exact same time. Isela's and Oro's relationship develops after a very long scene where Oro has to pull thorns out of her skin while she screams in pain. He spends the whole time just thinking, she's so strong. Oh, damn, she's so strong. Oh, just be strong. He says to her, be strong, and then she's able to just be strong, because that is Alex Astor's understanding of pain and everything. In between plot beats which lead to nothing, they search for the heart of Lightlark and they discuss how they can't find it. All of Lightlark's plot is non-specific side quests based on hunches based on nothing. With the story stripped down for this novella, that flimsiness stands out so much more. A chapter will end with the characters despairing about not finding the heart, and the next chapter will open with them discussing about how it's been another week and they have not found the heart. At one point, Oro betrays Isela utterly. He reveals her secret about having no powers, and it's all part of this ploy to get Cleo to trust him so you can look for the heart in a specific location. A few pages later, it turns out the heart was not there, and he, mostly unseen, makes up with Isela, and we're just back on to the same. While Oro and Isela are ostensibly, closer, they never feel like friends, or like a budding romance either. I think it's again a fault of how intensely certain Oro is about Isela from the start. She's already the most perfect, the most beautiful, so while he might call her fucking irritating less, it doesn't feel like his feelings for her ever change or develop. Here's a bit of dumb horniness. I find myself slipping out of bed, clutching the cape in my hands, bringing it to my face. It smells like her. I want the entire room to smell like her. I want her to smell like me. It's such a primal thought, I drop the cape and back away. Page 215. You ever love how someone smells so much you want her to smell like you so that when you smell her, you smell you, so really you're just being turned on by your smell? Apparently, Oro does. And this chapter later turns into the only sex scene in the novella. In the original book, Oro and Isela do not have sex, so this is a dream. I don't tend to focus on these too much in my reviews, but there is something I find distinct about this sex scene in particular and how it relates to Astor's overall portrayal of sexuality in her male leads. You see, this literal wet dream, because of course they're doing it on his favorite beach, features Isela on top in a lightly dominant role. She taunts Oro about how much he hates her and digs her nails into his skin as he repeats what she tells him to say in a daze. I don't think Astor would ever write something like this for Grimm. As much as Grimm is often paralyzed of his lust for Isela, he is never portrayed in a sexually subservient role to her. I think that this is because, perhaps subconsciously, this position is viewed as emasculating to Astor. Like, Grimm is the endgame. Grimm is the masculine everything. Grimm is going to be rough or sweet or loving, but he's not going to be pathetic. And to be clear, I am not calling any of this actually emasculating or pathetic. I wish beyond hope it was more common to see heterosexual relationships where the man enjoyed a submissive role, where the woman having power was seen as appealing. The opposite is just ridiculously untrue in young adult and adult romantasy. The power women have is that they are unexpectedly unique, unexpectedly powerful, but they're never more so than the shadowy dragon god fae their to enemies think that they're in relationships with. Even women like Isela or Feyre from Court of Thorns and Roses, these are the most special, powerful, blessed women in existence. They still kind of roll up to men who ultimately make decisions about how much agency they are allowed. This is why Oro being placed in such a submissive role in his dream stands out to me so much. I can't celebrate Oro being into this when it exists within the context of Grimm. Oro is the weaker love interest in every way. He went to save that child, but Grimm is the one who saved the day. Every woman on Lightlark Island wants to bang him and Grimm, but they want Grimm more. Oro has the power of 5 realms and still can't beat Grimm in a fight. While Oro writhes in bed having dreams about Isela, Grimm is seducing her for the second time as he's her secret husband. In a meta sense, while we read about Oro dreaming about being with Isela, the other half of the book will feature many scenes of Grimm actually doing so. That's why it feels emasculating, like lesser, a further kick in the head to the idea Oro is a worthwhile rival for Isela's affection. Though the true finishing blow on that front will come at the end of the novella, which we're going to just leap right to. There's more that occurs, but nothing of note. Like, imagine Oro being unpleasant, truncated conversations, repetitive plot points, that'll about cover it. Isela miraculously knows where the heart of Lightlark is, and that it's an egg. As Oro and her go to get it, she's shot through the chest. Grim shows up to save the day, and as Isela is being healed, Oro prays for her life. And yes, praise to those gods we still lack names for, in addition to any sense of what their domains are, how worship functions, what people believe about them. Gods we lack any knowledge of beyond the word gods. So, Oro prays, and here's what he says. Please, I say on my knees, staring straight at the sky, let her live, and I will keep fighting. I will keep this hope alive for a world that lives in peace. Let her live, and I will let her go. If that's what she wants, if that's what this world needs, I will let her go. I want her selfishly, desperately, wholeheartedly, but I just want her to live, even if it's not with me, even if I never see her again. If she is alive, that is enough. It will be enough to know that such beauty still lives in a broken world like this. Please, she is too good for this world, but I ask you to please keep her in it. You're alive, I say. The relief nearly brings me to my knees. She doesn't even have to be mine. She might never be mine, but the mere fact that she lives proves perfection exists. It proves this world has wonders in it yet. That I ever knew her at all is the world's greatest gift. I remember my promises. If she loves Grim, if she chooses him, that's okay. I won't scare her with my own feelings. I won't tell her. She'll never know. This isn't her burden. It's mine, and it is a pleasure to carry it. Page 256 to 257. I was truly gobsmacked when I read this scene. Like, you see it too, right? Like, how direct it is. Oro is practically staring the reader in the eyes and saying, hey, it's me, Mr. Oro Lightlark. Isela's gonna end up with Grim, and I'm totally cool with that. I'm happy that I'm gonna die in the final book in the series. Isela is too important and perfect and wonderful for me, and that's perfectly alright. Bye. Like, it's audacious. It is not that I am Team Grim or Oro, it's that this is a book called Oro, and this is a book marketed as being for fans of both boys, of both ships. Aster always, in marketing, treated Grim and Oro as dueling crowns, as equal love interests battling for Isela's heart. Isela is always torn between them. She's insistent on her equal loves while always favoring Grim more. It would be one thing if Isela simply chose Grim by the second or third book, and Oro is left as a previous love interest with some unresolved emotions. But that has never been the case. Aster wants this to be a love triangle for fans to fight over, and here, in her indulgent POV bonus book aimed at her true fans, she's flipped the Oro girlies a big middle finger. Oro cannot be more explicit about how chill and cool he is with not being endgame. He doesn't actually know yet that Grim and Isela are together, it's just something he's thought about, but he is explicit about accepting them. This doesn't really line up with how Oro acts in books 2 or 3 either. Like, he doesn't seem like a man who has made a deal with unspecified gods to accept being second fiddle to Grim. It feels more meta, Aster looking at us through Oro looking at us, telling us to not feel bad that Oro isn't going to end up with his first and only true love, because he made peace with that in secret a long time ago. At the end of Oro's novella, he is in love with Isela, and the audience is left with a pitiful smile. After all, as we all know, Oro can't have shit in this light of a lark. Hello, and welcome to Grim. It's Grimmin' time, baby. Grim's novella begins when he is young, like Oro's story did. Like Oro, Grim struggled with his powers, was seen as lesser, and both sought his father's approval and utterly despised him. These are only the first of a relentless number of parallels between the two boys, to the degree that, by the end of the book, I began to suspect it was part of a longer, stranger conspiracy. Oro and Grim have always had some things in common, but you would really expect the prequels to help flesh out their differences. Part of the appeal of a love triangle is the contrast the love interests offer, a contrast which often further represents a choice the lead must make. Light or dark, order or chaos. blonde or black-haired. These prequels take the opposite approach. Grim and Oro had remarkably similar childhoods with remarkably similar struggles. They feel similarly about sex and romance, and identically about Isela. Both have emotional outbursts, yet suppress their emotions totally. Both react with extreme violence towards those who threaten Isela. Both have killed hundreds at war and are vaguely scarred, yet numb to this. Bizarrely, both have a taste-related magical ability, which grants them insight into Isela's thoughts and feelings. I'm sure that the parallel was intentional, but you will see how it stacks up as we discuss the second novella. They are too identical. My theory is that Grim and Oro must be part of the same divine being who split in twain long ago. This boyfriend was in love with the goddess Isela probably once was, and at the end of the series, the boys will fuse into one once more, though the end result will be decisively more grim than Oro. Now, none of that is substantiated in canon, and I don't think it's true. But I began to go mad somewhere between sex scenes, and that is what I cooked up for Grim. Again, this is such like a nicely bound, I really like a lot of the illustrative details on this. It's just such a pain that this is this book, and that I'm going to have to just have it in my life, and I don't want it to be displayed anywhere, but it does look nice. I mean, to be fair, if I only displayed this spine, there's no text on it, so as long as nobody ever touched it, it's nice, right? Anyway, Grim, the book. Grim is a child at the Winter Palace, where all of his half-siblings have gathered to train for the Gauntlet. This is the Nightshade tradition of making all the heirs fight to the death until one is left. A tradition which I struggle to make sense of considering the world building. I mean, isn't having many children supposed to weaken you? Does the power flow back immediately when a child dies? Like, I don't know, and neither does the author. Grim has something like 32 half-siblings, and they're all within a few years of each other. When the youngest comes of age, and we don't know what age that is, the Gauntlet begins. Grim is considered a burden and a failure because of his lackluster control of his powers. His one friend is his slightly older sister Lila, who has always been the favorite to win. Let's read some of Grim's prose just right off the bat, and while we're at it, try to guess his age. I've said he's young. How old is he, though? I have powers. I've used them before, but they are fickle, rare. Summoning shadows doesn't come easily to me. I barely feel them stirring beneath my skin. It's as if they're resting, waiting. For what? I'm not sure. I'm not like my siblings. I watch them sometimes from my frost-glazed window. I see the shadows in the garden inch toward them as they pass. My half-brothers and sisters, all within a few years of my age, carelessly string them together as if it's easy, as if it's natural. A burden, I once heard a guardian call me, so I've tried everything to become essential. I left the Winter Palace early this morning to join my siblings and the rest of the Nightshade Elite's children for training. While they were grouped into shadow wielders, I joined the warriors. I focused on swordplay. I can't rely on my abilities, but I can count on my mettle. Page 1 to 2. So I went with him being 13, maybe, in my mind, because that's approximately what I believe Oro's age was at the start of his novella. So it would make sense as a parallel. But unlike Oro, however, we get Grim's precise age shortly after this. And he's 7. Like, he's 7 years old. I won't be quoting a lot from this section, but Grim never reads as 7. Writing a child's voice is a challenge, but I just get the feeling Aster didn't even try. I'm not certain she knows what a 7-year-old just is either. Like, at one point, 7-year-old Grim carries his 9-year-old sister down a mountain as she sleeps. At another point, the 7-year-old Grim is passed out, and it takes 3 adults to carry him. Grim and Lila sneak out to watch a meteor shower, which is said to occur every 50 years, and then they discuss a magic cursed diamond known as the Infinite, which is on a nearby cursed island, which I believe is called Atlas. And both of these are, like, such specific details, it is obvious that they're going to be important to the main series. Oro's prequel didn't expand the lore in any meaningful way, but Chapter 1 of Grimm is setting up MacGuffins from the get-go. Like, these are obviously, at least one of these is going to be a plot point in Crown Tide, I'm 100% sure. On their way back, they're caught by the Guardians of the Palace. Because in Aster's mind, abuse and suffering literally make you strong, these Guardians delight in skinning, beating, and torturing young children. Lila is a bat shapeshifter and flees, but Grimm is caught and locked up. After a round of extreme blood loss and abuse, it's said that he's like cut down to the muscle. He just calmly endures it. But then he begins to panic that Lila will be caught after the fact and punished. And in his distress, he teleports to a nearby beach. This is where he discovers his portaling power for the first time. After more distress, he's able to teleport back and not be discovered, and he decides to hide this ability. Like Oro, Grimm hates the idea of being the ruler, and is very content to let Lila kill him during the Gauntlet. Like Oro, Grimm will wind up ruler anyway after the traumatic death of his older sibling. 5 years pass, so Grimm is now 12, and the Gauntlet is in 3 days. One night, he teleports away, as he's done countless times before. He's going all over the place. At one point, it said that he's never seen a map before, but he goes to an abandoned library and finds one, which I'm just ad-libbing here, but it's just, I'm remembering it right now, and I just remember, what does Alex Aster think worlds function? Why are there so many abandoned libraries in Lightlark? Nobody knows anything about the history of the world or just anything at all, but there are all of these libraries that are just abandoned. Like, libraries are these naturally occurring phenomenon, but no one values books anymore. Anyways, Grimm teleports away for the night, as he's done plenty of times, but this time his father discovers that he teleported away. So Grimm wakes up the next morning to screaming as his father kills all of his half-siblings, and the Gauntlet is cancelled. Which, again, talk about a waste. Like, Aster loves the concept of deadly games. She loves them so much for someone who is allergic to the execution. We already knew about this Gauntlet from the main series, but Lila is a new addition. Grimm is highly attached to her and deeply haunted by her coming death, and I am also hurt by her death because I genuinely really liked Lila. She was fun, she's cavalier about death and power, but she's also kind of caring. She asks Grimm how he'd most like to die when the time comes, and treats the Gauntlet as a bit sad but a simple inevitability she's pleased to be the coming victor of. Lila was the assumed heir, a part-time bat and skilled of her powers. Yet Grimm inherited their ancestor Cronin's flair for portaling, so their father kills all of the competition, and he saves Lila for last in order to force Grimm to kill her. The focus on Grimm having portaling is, like, being worth all of this. It's never really justified. Like, I guess it makes enough sense in a fanatical idiot way. Like, they love Cronin, and Grimm got the very rare flair that Cronin had. But Grimm sucked at everything else. His father didn't even know if Grimm is any good at it, and then he just decides on a total wipeout of everybody. Lila and Grimm are made to fight, and Grimm manages to use his shadows for pretty much the first time to kill Lila while she's in bat form. And as she dies, we get this description. Shadows explode from my skin, sharp as knives. They all stab through her at once, and I watch those cat-like eyes widen. She's thrown back by the force of my shadows. By the time she hits the floor, she's herself again. Page 18. This is something which exists to bother me and mainly me. Lila's eyes are described as cat-like previously. They're as sharp with a strange gold tint. And I had to poll people about this and ask about what does this mean? I've asked people multiple times. So, does she have slitted eyes like a cat's? Did she have reflective eyes like a cat? Did she have human eyes just with a gold tint? Human eyes that are cat-like in shape, as is sometimes said. I'm not sure. And what does this mean for her bat form? Because bats do not have slitted eyes or reflective eyes, and certainly not human eyes. So did Aster once more not research an animal before putting it in her novel? Or is her bat form meant to have what her human eyes look like, whatever her human eyes look like, which again could be many things. I don't know, but it has bothered me tremendously. We then move 20 years forward, so Grimm is 32. Wow. having precise ages and specifying the length of time skips sure adds to the cohesion of a story. Could you imagine if half the book, for some reason, lacked any? We even learn Lightlark and Nightshade began their war 5 years ago when Grim was 27. Gee, I wonder how old Oro was at the time. He does get mentioned. It's one of the few times he's mentioned in the book. 513, I say, counting the dead, counting the kills on my blade. He frowns. They should surrender, he says. Why haven't they? I stand. It's the commander, the Sunling Prince, the second son. He leads the armies. He, with his speeches and hope and fire, has rallied men beyond just soldiers. My men fight out of fear of my father. The Sunling's men? They fight out of love for their home, for their people. Love is for fools, and it has made all of them foolish. It has made thousands rush into battle with barely the right equipment. It's idiotic, though it has made them stronger than anticipated. Harder to beat. Page 23. Boy, I sure can't wait to read Oro's side of the story and witness all of those impassioned speeches. Grim thinks about how he's become an utter monster, a weapon for his father. Grim knows that he could single-handedly end the war with ease if he just opened his heart to emotion again, but he refuses to do so, and his father doesn't realize that he's holding back. His father, like Oro's, does not fight in battles directly, and makes a number of foolish moves from afar. His father, like Oro's, is unnamed. I wonder what Aster thinks war and armies are, what barely the right equipment means. Back in the novella Oro, it was explained that the reason Lightlark struggled during the war is because the king kept sending his armies out on ships to find new lands. It is never specified what happened to these armies. There aren't any colonies, so we must assume his armies never found any land, despite all the new lands, colonized after his death, being located a few weeks away from his island. Were his armies all dying at sea? Why did he want that land? Why didn't he stop after the first dozen boats full of armies disappeared? And Grim's father is rather the same, craving greater power to no specific end. After the death of the king and queen of Lightlark, Grim finds his father looking especially frail. He explains how he went to claim the diamond called the Infinite, located on the island of Atlas, and he failed. This is right after he killed Oro's father and mother. He just went and popped off to this island, failed to get a diamond, and he was cursed by it. I don't understand why my father, ruler of Nightshade, would take such a risk. Then a thought forms. You thought its power would help us win the war. The corner of his lips twitch. He looks like he's almost at the edge of losing his mind as he leans forward. The war? This stone would win the world. My father will never be satisfied. He doesn't just want Lightlark. He wants everything. Page 29. This is immediately after he's practically won the war. The war basically is won, but then he just popped off to get poisoned by a diamond, one that, by the way, I'm sure Grim will claim with ease in Crown Tide. And all of that for the world. Grim seems to know what this means. For everything. But what the fuck is everything in the realm of Lightlark? The known world at this point is the Isle of Lightlark and the Isle of Nightshade. If the new lands are known of, there has been no effort to settle there, and no resources worth claiming either. Again, no colonies. The King of Lightlark keeps sending people to look for stuff and just hasn't found jack. There is no world, no everything. Grim's father is meant to be a bad ruler and a bit insane. But Grim recognizes his desire as if it is at the very least a plausible ambition. Grim does not know about the other realms yet, the fact that Lightlark is its own pocket dimension, and there's no evidence to suggest that his father does either. Like Oro's father, he is seized by some narrative demand to be evil and covet evil things, regardless of that making sense, and to the detriment of plausible writing. Grim is angry at his father for seeking the diamond, and demands that they surrender, thus landing him on Lightlark for the events we saw in the previous novella. His time with Oro as friends is reduced to half a page, but Grim reminisces about it as his only time of happiness and peace. It's the correct decision to not retell events in full between the novellas, but it is such a wasted opportunity to not give the reader new scenes in the same time period. In the novella Oro, we spend many chapters focused on Grimm. In Grimm, we spend none on Oro, but the writing wants to tug at our heartstrings about how much of a loss Grimm suffers when their friendship ends. We could have seen a filler conversation, a moment from them training together, anything to make this significant event actually significant. It's not just our people that die today. Our friendship dies too, forever. And a jagged piece of myself, of trust and hope and a sliver of happiness, dies with it. I run in the opposite direction, closing myself off, building walls, burying any emotion I let slip in the last 2 decades. A mistake. Always a mistake. Page 33. After this, Grimm returns to his father, who promptly kills himself. He evidently got a prophecy about Nightshade's power returning and Grimm claiming that damn diamond, but it's extremely vague. In another page, we're 499 years later to the introduction of Isela. Half of Oro's story was the prequel, but Grimm's just rushes right ahead to what really matters. The world's most important and beautiful woman. And, of course, making a special appearance is the return of my beloved character, the nondescript blob of background wenches. More than ever, these so-called human women exist purely to contrast the real star of the show. Grimm is told he needs an heir, and so it's time for the covets to be gathered so he can have sex with all of them once. If they end up pregnant, they will give birth to an heir who will compete in the next Gauntlet, and traditionally be killed shortly after. We must assume that every woman who excitedly volunteers for this chance to be impregnated by Grimm knows this, yet all are just full of these tittering, dizzying excitement, which Grimm is repulsed by. Grimm, like Oro, does not seem that enthused by sex and is just repulsed by romance. Sweet poisoned envy radiates from my guards as I pass through the hall. It makes me scowl. Fools. They think I'm lucky to be heading toward a line of women ready to sleep with me, eager to be part of the ruling blood. I would rather be at the Scar, battling Drex, instead of this. I've had many women, and it has been a pleasurable yet fleeting distraction. This is different. This has a purpose. I've never been with a woman more than once. It's against our rules to keep from getting attached. As if I would. Love. It almost makes me laugh. What fool would put themselves in that position? For what? A person to bed more than once? To be nagged at and fussed over for eternity? Some men in my court have taken wives. I pity them. Page 37 to 38. So Grimm can sense the emotions of other people, and he sees them as colored auras. Oro, you'll recall, has a similar ability in his flair for tasting truths and lies people speak, but Grimm's flair is obviously more powerful and might as well also serve as a lie detector. He really just has a better version of what Oro has going on. The first time Grimm sees Isela, her aura is the brightest and most unique he's ever seen, and he immediately begins to taste her emotions, something which has never occurred before or since. He doesn't really think about it much at all. It's just sort of and I could taste her emotions, which was new, and then it just sometimes is mentioned in the text. He doesn't really think, man, that's crazy. Like Oro, the moment he looks at Isela, he sounds as if he's lost his goddamn mind. Let's get this over with. I open the door and go still. Red. People's emotions have auras, colors. They are usually similar, dull. I've never seen this color before. It's so saturated. It's the shade of roses, of hearts, of blood. Her. A woman wearing the same scrap of fabric as everyone else, but somehow she stands out. The room is full, but she has my full attention. It isn't, I admit, just her peculiar aura. She's the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. The moment the thought is formed, I incinerate it. Beautiful? Ridiculous. Nothing in this ash-crusted world has earned that word in centuries. Nothing, I think, except her. My jaw works as I try to steady my thoughts, as I rush to bury the swell of emotion, but her red aura is like poison, seeping through the gaps in the fortresses I've built around myself. The more I look at her, the worse it gets. Her hair is brown and long, curled at the ends. Every strand gleams. I imagine touching it, pulling it. A blush is spreading across her cheeks, highlighting a few freckles, and I have the strange urge to count them. My thoughts horrify me. I should not be thinking about her. I should not be staring at her, but I can't stop. Something is wrong with me. Maybe I've been poisoned. I should leave. I should portal to the other side of the island. Instead, I continue to stare like a fool. She's wearing red paint on her heart-shaped lips. I don't kiss anyone. I don't let anyone get that close to me. But right now, I have the sudden urge to remove all that paint with my tongue, because she doesn't need anything extra to make her look beautiful. She already is. She is perfection. She is radiance. Page 38 to 39. There's so much to hate here, it's hard to know where to begin. And among the things I hate, the sun keeps coming out of the clouds and then disappearing again, and I'm sure it's doing weird things with the visuals, but you know what? This is an audio medium, firstly. So, yes, everyone in the world, everyone Grimm has ever seen or known for over 500 years is dull. Isela alone is bright. Why? There is no why, unless the magic secret soulmate thing turns out to be real, which at this point I kind of would prefer, rather than this level of not like other girls going on. It still would be not like other girls, but at least if there was a magical explanation, then I would be like, well, it's a goddess, it's magic, you know? This is just ridiculous. Grimm has had sex with hundreds of women, but he's never seen one comparable to this 20-year-old. He's in love and lust instantly. She has done nothing but exist at a middle distance. Grimm says he doesn't kiss, but we will soon learn that he really has never kissed anybody, ever. But the moment he sees Isela, he wants to. Okay, maybe he doesn't say that he wants to kiss her here. He actually says he wants to lick all of her lipstick off with his tongue. Like a dog, just licking. And that's so grossly unappealing on its own. But then we're told the reason is that she's so ridiculously perfect. The idea of her wearing makeup is an insult to her radiance. As somebody who is asexual and on the aromantic spectrum, I do not have a typical relationship to the concepts of attraction, and stories about romance and sex do not really appeal to me on their own. This doesn't mean that I can't enjoy any of it, but I acknowledge the stuff I like is probably different from Aster's target audience's desires. So perhaps when I say, I don't like this, it's not truly a fault of the writing, but a mismatch of taste. But I do not like this. I believe that I get it. The hot bad boy who hasn't ever opened his heart to love finds you, the audience surrogate of an inexperienced young woman, the most attractive, desirable, lovable person in the world. Okay, yeah, sure, that's a trope, that's everywhere. But at first sight, and not only at first sight, but to this degree, without a word, without a shared look, without any sense of her personality or anything about her as a person. It's as if he's compelled, like he's really been poisoned to the point of delirium. Like Oro, Grimm is rendered as this loveless, sexless, angsty man until he is activated at the sight of Isela. Someone has flipped a switch and everything's different now. Like Oro, he's going to be obsessed with her, stalk her, hate her, and then love her. It's the same love story twice, and in both cases, the men do not seem to understand or choose love. It's more that the narrative has them in a chokehold, forcing intrusive thoughts of domestic futures in the same breath as they ramble about uncontrollable loathing and desire. Grimm picks Isela and feels compelled to take her to his room. He never brings girls to his room because I guess women are icky. More than anything, she's shocked. Shocked? Is she surprised that I chose her? I frown, not even remembering any of the other faces in that room. She has to know what she looks like. She's perfect. It's just a fact. Yes, factual. logical. This is clearly some momentary reaction to her appearance. Nothing more, nothing meaningful. We both know what we're here for. This is my duty. But perhaps I could enjoy this. It wouldn't be a crime to have a few moments of forgetting everything, of working this stress out of my system. I'll be using her. She doesn't matter. I always take women to another room. The idea of them touching my things repulses me. But for some reason, this time, I turn in the hall. I open my door, surprised at my own actions. It's a curiosity, I assure myself, nothing more. The moment she's inside my room, the moment she's within these walls where I've never taken another woman, an avalanche of want rocks me, of possessiveness, of over a woman I don't even know. Page 40. I love the reminder of the other women and how they are literally faceless compared to Isela. All of this is then a retelling of a scene from the second book, Nightbane. Nightbane. I always Nightshade, Nightbane. It's Nightbane, as the rest of Grimm's book will continue to be. And something interesting occurs when comparing them. In the novella, Grimm has just agreed to, begin trying for an heir. It is the first night of this that he sees Isela, who is the first woman that he chooses. He takes her to his room, the first woman to ever be there. In Nightbane, it is not the first time. One woman in line, and they're not known as covets in that book either, remarks that it is her fourth time participating in the lineup. Grimm confirms that he stopped trying for an heir after he met Isela, but he was trying. And that's a curious little change, isn't it? There's no need for it. Either way, Isela is special enough Grimm chooses her over the Horde, and he chooses to then never engage with anybody again. Yet there was some need to ramp that up anyway, to create more distance between Isela and her non-competition. It's as if Grimm would be tainted by having slept with 5 women the night before he met Isela, despite the countless more he's been with in his lifetime. His first time with Isela needs to be his first time in as many ways as possible. It's her first sexual encounter, her first kiss, and also his first kiss. No sooner than the word is out of her mouth, my lips are on hers. I've never kissed anyone. It always seemed useless, disgusting really, too sentimental. The second I taste her, I know there's no forgetting her. No, she is like a curse, impossible to get rid of. She is a curse I never want to break. Page 41. For the first time, after over 500 years of finding the idea of kissing gross and unappealing, Grimm is overtaken by it as if kissing is a biological imperative activated by true love. Over 500 years, and he hasn't even tried it. Next, you're going to tell me he's never given gay sex a whirl either. I will admit I'm being shockingly unfair to Grimm here, because I also find kissing gross, and I would be the quasi-immortal who managed to go centuries without trying it, even if I was also having sex. This is because, as Grimm expresses, kissing is a bit nasty, and I have no desire to do so. I can really put myself in Grimm's shoes for this one plot point, which is why I can say his sudden turnaround to being all about kissing is unsettling. You don't avoid kissing that long by accident. It's a choice shaped by clear preference, and if I suddenly felt years of preference disappear the moment I looked at someone, I'd be weirded the hell out. Like, to go from never to a feverish urge to stick your tongue between someone's lips would be a freaky sensation. And Grimm does not think about it, because to him, the lack of interest in kissing is not a preference but a plot point. Kissing is often seen as a romantic act more than a sexual one, and that's the real reason Grimm has never done it, and why he loves doing it with Isela. And boy, does he love it. The kissing he gets up to is more than enough to affirm my place in the anti-kissing league. Both characters are having their first kiss, but we are to understand this is a pleasurable, desirable act which is being executed correctly. Correctly. I fist my hand in her hair and crash her lips to mine again. She gasps, and I use the opportunity to lick the top of her mouth, to taste her completely, to stroke against her teeth. My tongue rolls against hers, and the groan it pulls from the back of her throat is nearly my undoing, especially when she takes my tongue between her lips and sucks. Fuck. My skin is on fire. I'm aching, almost trembling with want, feeling her heat right against mine, biting her bottom lip, pulling her mouth more firmly against mine, as if I could possibly taste more, as if I could imprint myself so thoroughly that she would taste me for days. With just one kiss, she has ruined me, destroyed me. Just like the world looks dull, every emotion, every touch, everything pales in comparison to her. Page 42. This is another case where I asked all the brave, kiss-enjoying warriors I could find about this technique, and the resounding reply was that it was gross and vomit-inducing. Certainly, some aspects were something in terms of sloppy makeouts, but licking the top of your partner's mouth and teeth was especially panned as bad. Mid-kiss, Isela stabs Grim and flees. So we get to the part where Grim hates her, but like Oro, all his talk of hate and enemies is diminished by his continued obsession with her perfection. Grim stalks her from a distance while invisible, and then begins to watch her sleep. He lusts over her curvaceous body and thin nightgown, and then we learn for the first time in 4 books Isela's age, definitively her age. The already low neckline of her silk dress dips as she keeps leaning, and I swallow. Then I tear my eyes away. I'm no fool. I won't ogle a temptress like some sort of idiot. Show me how you're traveling the realms, I practically beg, so I never have to step foot in this wretched land again, so I don't have to sit here every night and watch you sleep. But the witch only buries herself beneath her blankets, cowering like a fool instead of a heart-eating, chest-stabbing ruler. She looks so fragile, so naive. She is young compared to the rest of us. She's lived just over 20 years, according to records. I shake my head and make a fist. This relatively young ruler manages to break through all the protections I've formed around my realm and stab me through the chest. Page 47. Somehow, Grim talking about how young and naive the sexy woman he's watching sleep is does not make me feel comfortable about their relationship. He assures himself she's this dangerous force, as if it's supposed to reassure the reader, but we know more than him. She found her way to Grim's palace by accident, was chosen by accident, stabbed him, and ran away without any further plan. She is naive, and far too young for you, dude. Like Oro, Grim ascribes Isela far more cunning and danger than she actually possesses. Most of the enemy's aspect to both of their 2 lovers' arc is based on the men assuming Isela is a dangerous temptress up to something secret, when she really isn't. Grim watches her and threatens her, and very quickly determines Isela's true identity as the daughter of his curse-immune general, who must have inherited his immunity to curses. We learn more about Isela's father, though like any of the parents in the series, he remains nameless. As it has long been assumed, Isela's father wasn't merely a general in Grim's army, he was Grim's only friend. And there is nothing illegal about dating the daughter of your former best friend, but it feels at the very least awkward, right? Like just a little bit strange to process. He knew Isela's father for likely hundreds of years, fought beside him, and trusted him more than anyone else. He was more powerful than all my men combined. He had impenetrable armor. He was as cold and unfeeling as I was, and that made me trust him. He didn't suffer from the whims of my other warriors. Side by side, we battled the Drex. He saved my life more than once. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to keep them at bay for so long. He was the one who helped me implement the metal barriers that have held for decades, the ones that are now starting to give away. If it wasn't for the fact I could feel his emotions, feel his lack of emotion, I might have even been threatened by his abilities. I might have believed he planned to overthrow me. Page 60 to 61. But Grim isn't particularly shaken by this reveal. He's furious to realize Isela's father betrayed him and fled, but at the same time he's happy because that's why Isela exists. He never sees any similarities, though, between Isela and her father, or reflects on this coincidence really that much further. Something stands out about Isela's father, more so with this new lore. Isela's father and mother are parallels of Isela and Grim. Isela's father was an extremely powerful and emotionless nightshade warrior who met a ridiculously beautiful wildling woman, and they fell in love as she tended to his wounds. Isela does not know or consider that she is in love with a parallel to her father, but it is kind of an odd choice, right? It's the same with Isela and Grimm's ancestors, Lark and Cronin, having been in love as well. It's oddly pseudo-incestual, as if every generation of these two families is the same two people hooking up. Grim realizes that Isla is immune to curses because of her father, so he starts this plan to get her to find a cursed sword, which forces them to work together until they fall in love. You know the gist. This is the same thing with Oro. It's just, we gotta fetch quest around to various places, fail to find something until we find something, and fall in love. At one point, Grim and Isla have a duel. This is a scene that's present in the second book, and not wholly interesting on its own, but I just want to take a moment to look at the fight choreography. Like, as said, Aster does not really get fighting. So I was sharing this scene with my flatmate to kind of laugh at one point, and she picked up on something else. What is described as both bad technique and literally impossible. Irritated that she was naive enough to think she had any chance of beating me, that she hurled herself into my orbit like a damned asteroid, I reached through our blades, grabbed her by the front of her shirt, and fell backwards, pulling her atop me. My head hits the sand, but I don't mind that it's getting all over me. No, all I can focus on is her body, inches above mine, with only my arm and blade between us. All I can see are her green eyes, widened. All I can taste is her surprise. And something else, something unexpected. A pebble of want that is nothing compared to mine. It's just a grain of sand compared to my own desire. My blade is right against her heart. Page 69. Nice. They are dueling with swords, so to demonstrate, my flatmate recreated the scene with her swords. We have two swords, because she does martial arts. And do you know how big a sword is? If you pull someone on top of you while pointing your sword at them, you are either impaling them or remaining so distanced that they are left straddling you. You could get closer by turning your blade kind of horizontal. I really should have the sword with me for this, but then you wouldn't really have it against their heart in any meaningful way. It'd be quite an awkward twist as well. We kind of ran through this actual fight thing, and you have to twist your arm in such weird ways to get a blade in any meaningful way against the heart. It's really awkward, kind of impossible, or fully impossible. And either ways, this is also just the wrong move in a fight. Like, if you want to impale them, it's right, but reaching between cross blades to grab someone's shirt requires you to be very close up, and the act of reaching like that makes you very vulnerable. Falling backwards blindly is a bad idea, and generally speaking, you do not want whoever you're fighting to be on top of you. Grim frames this as this epic power move of threat and desire, but he's actually doing a pretty bad job. In between Isla scenes, we sometimes see Grim fight Drex, and their return is a truly triumphant one. The Drex stop. I watch as they try to crash through my barrier and fail. The creatures still in the sky shoot down at me, like throwing stars. It's from page 59. Yes. Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I can't even express that kind of level of just, fuck yeah. I do not believe that Aster has ever read my reviews. I do not want her to. But right now, I can just rest assured that she definitely has it, because she's goddamn compared something to throwing stars for the 6th time in 3 books. This is not a metaphor anyone uses, and here it is again. It's glorious. It's manna from heaven, these throwing star Drex. The moment combat started, I had that thought creep in. Will they fall like throwing stars? And goddammit, those sons of bitches. They sure did. And anyway, the Drex fight this chapter has another funny writing quirk Aster has used before that I just enjoy, and we're going to enjoy it together. Nondescript metal. There is only one metal that can pierce them, and we have little of it left. One of my warriors begins shooting metal-plated arrows, and I watch a Drex go down. Another. Page 57. I find it so amusing in its awkwardness. This vague MacGuffin known only as metal. It is a special metal made from a special ore, but does not have a name or color or any presence in the world beyond being the only hope against unkillable demonic birds. Apparently, it is limited. More time is spent thinking about Grim and Isela than anything like any other aspect of the universe. And even then, Grim and Isela are not enjoyable characters. Like Oro, Grim's initial opinion upon teaming up with Isela is that she is annoying, talks too much, and is too emotional. And you know, as much as the men sound and kind of are entitled misogynists, if two people just kind of come to the exact same conclusion about Isela, maybe there's something true there. Working with the Heart Eater has proved more infuriating than I imagined. Why does the fate of my realm have to rely on someone so killable? We're just 1 hour into our first stop, and she has nearly been gutted by a rock face and killed by the blacksmith. She's fragile, she's ridiculous and sensitive, and she talks far too much for my liking. The moment we leave the blacksmith, she is, predictably, screaming at me. Her anger flares when I roll my eyes at her outrage. It's not that I don't care, it's that she was never in any danger. I was there the whole time. I would never let him hurt her. I'm the most dangerous thing she'll ever face. Page 80 to 81. Yet, there is something different about Oro and Grim, for once, because Grim is somehow nicer. While both find Isela to be frustrating, foolish, and difficult, Grim immediately begins looking at Isela with empathy. He's still a bastard about it, switching between cartoon wolf horniness and anger at her existence, but he compares their lives and is touched by her emotions. Oro comes off as vile in comparison. Remember how just weirdly entitled he was about, no one's ever talked to me with such disrespect. He should be so thankful for my mere presence. All that weird stuff that Oro's on about, Grim at least is like, wow, she had a rough childhood and so did I. Grim having these beats of kindness and affection for Isela is not really consistent with what we've been told about his character, though. He is somehow both the tortured, emotionless monster and the soft, angsty boy at the same time. He hates killing, but he loves it. He's disgusted by love and instantly a hopeless romantic once Isela exists. He's everything desirable in a love interest at once, in a way that does not cohere into a well-written character. Take, once more, the issue of Poppy and Tara. Isela's abusive guardians who fed her poison every day and lied to her and isolated her to live in a tiny room until she was old enough to act in Aurora's plan. Grim knows all of this by the main series, even working with Aurora despite her role in grooming Isela. When Isela exiles Poppy and Tara, Grim takes them in and tells Isela she needs them. Poppy and Tara are some of the most straightforward villains out there. They're far more villains than Grim has ever been. We don't know jack about them, of course, if they're related or dating or how they came to do these things, but we do know that they objectively suck. Grim favoring his wife's abusive pseudo-parents over her is one of his worst acts, and that's why the books seem weirdly keen to erase them. In the third book, Grim protectively shouts at Poppy and Tara on Isela's behalf, despite it being his fault they even exist in her life. She tried to get rid of them. In this prequel, we get his first impression of them. "Foolish girl," one says. "Do you think we keep you inside just because we want to? No, because you put us all in danger when you're reckless. Is that what you want? For everyone in this realm to die?" My knuckles are white, gripping the side of this chair, listening to that guardian scream at her. Remembering my own guardians. I hear her voice through the walls. It's trembling. I reach for her emotions, closing my eyes in focus, and they practically scald me. She feels guilt, sadness, shame. "I'm sorry," she says. That makes my nostrils flare. I'm not even sure why, but the idea of her apologizing to that woman, the idea of that woman daring to. "Sorry isn't good enough," her guardian screams. "You are just like your mother, and it is going to get you killed. It is going to get us all killed." Shock and hurt reaches me. I'm on my feet in a moment. I'm melting through walls, portaling until I see them. The two guardians side by side, only one of them speaking. Isela in front of them, head bowed, tears glistening on her cheeks. I have to physically stop myself from turning the woman pointing her finger at Isela to ash. Anger and outrage surge through me, telling me to do it. I almost do. Page 81 to 82. This novella wants Grimm to have PTSD so bad, and I hate it. Aster's understanding of abuse has always been cliche. It's too overwrought and brief to have any impact. Grimm was punished by being skinned by shadow magic until he nearly bled out, far too many times to count. His father was going to make him compete in a deadly game where his family killed each other, but his father instead killed all his siblings, and Grimm had to kill his favorite sister in self-defense. Grimm's trauma is simply too grim to be taken seriously. It would not be at all impossible for a better written book to feature this level of fantasy violence and make it feel real, but Aster is plainly not capable of it. That's why these blips of trauma irritate me so much. Grimm reacts to the scene of abuse and evokes his own trauma. He's having a flashback as much as he's feeling protective of Isela. Yet we know this doesn't align with any of his future actions. It's merely what a desirable love interest ought to do. Grimm has a much more pronounced PTSD flashback later on. As we draw closer to the celebration, there's screaming. My arm juts out in front of Isela on instinct. My blood goes cold. Roaring fills my ears. But as my vision settles, I see the woman who is screaming is now smiling. She's embracing someone in front of her, a friend. My pulse is still racing. The screaming. Isela is like a balm, bringing me back to the present, an anchor pulling me down firmly into this moment. She is oblivious to any of my inner torments, but her presence alone is enough to help me take a full breath. Instead of sinking into past traumas, I watch her. I watch her eyes widen as she takes in the celebration, her wonder abating my worry. When she starts striding forward through the crowd, I have no choice but to release the panic in my bones and walk with her. Page 111 to 112. It's really inappropriate to question someone's trauma and how that manifests, but Grimm is a fictional dipshit, so I'm allowed to. I find Grimm having this kind of reaction to a scream to be unearned and distasteful. In the moment, it's all dandy, like how sweet, how Isela's his anchor, how he's able to move through that trigger and ground in. Except, wait, this has never happened before, and it will never happen after. How sensitive is Grimm to being triggered by screams? Because he loves to torture people until they scream. He loves cruel pain and causing suffering. He has killed thousands of people and ignored their pleas of surrender. Is it in the context of not being at a place of battle and hearing a scream? Perhaps, but this context again is so different. He's walking in the middle of the day with Isela at his side, and he hears a scream of happiness, and it sets him off to when he woke up as a child and his siblings were being killed. Is it possible that screams he causes don't bother him? Absolutely, because it could be a reclamation of his trauma, a sense of control over what he once couldn't. Many things are possible, but nothing is specified. And it's a bad form to question triggers, but I get to pick on Grimm about this because in addition to his bastardous and fictional status, I myself have CPTSD, which is probably what Grimm would have if he was well written. I think, like all of Aster's uses of abuse and trauma, these flashbacks do not represent any thorough attempt at understanding or portraying what she's writing. These are sprinkles of characterization meant to evoke sympathy, rather than a core part of who Grimm is and what he's been through. And around this point, the novella becomes unbearably repetitive. Grimm's inner monologue is not as unpleasant towards Isela as Oro's overall, but it is worse in its rambling. Chapters become overly ridiculously long, each consisting of several short scenes where Grimm and Isela obnoxiously flirt, tend to each other's wounds, or meander in their quest. All around that, though, is paragraph after paragraph of Grimm saying the exact same things again and again. We are similar, so similar, though at the same time, so vastly different. Did she think of us as the same? Did she think our lives could ever intertwine at all? She finally gets it right after many attempts. Pride rises within me again, as if her win is shared, as if her own flash of excitement and pleasure has elicited the same feelings within me. Her happiness wilts away after I make some rude comment. And this, I think, is the truth of our situation. She is a rose, blooming and lovely. I am a shadow, blocking out her sun. No use in pretending anything different. When we finish portaling, we switch to swordplay. I should tell her to leave. I should leave. The gods know I have 1,000 things to get done, but I stay. Page 107. Grim contradicts himself constantly. This is to show that he's stuck between wanting Isela and thinking he shouldn't like Isela. To make you understand this, the text tells you it non-stop, in short sentences, many of them entirely new paragraphs, in a row. Take this from me and you'll see my other wildling curses in action, she says. She means eating my heart. Doesn't she know she already has it? Still, I accept her star stick and watch as she makes her way through the dense crowd to the platform ahead, surprised she's actually doing it. She disappears behind a curtain. The moment she steps on stage, in a skirt and hardly anything else, I am well and truly gone, because she has no powers, yet she has bewitched me entirely. She is not cursed to take the hearts of men, but I have given her mine willingly. I've never held anything dearly, yet she holds my full attention. She meets my gaze and I feel powerless myself, because I am defenseless against these feelings. I'm not sure I'm breathing. She has taken my breath away, my soul, my heart, my focus, my everything, and she doesn't even know it. She's my enemy, but she could be my savior too. She could ruin me, and I might just thank her for it. Page 115. Grim begins to fantasize around here about Isela wearing a marriage necklace and becoming his wife. He later imagines having a kid with her. At the same time, he thinks of her as fragile and weak and an idiot, though also exceptionally strong and clever and perfect. He grows extremely possessive of her, starting his overprotective instinct to want to murder any man who looks at her. At the same time, Grim begins to repeat a strange new idea, that he has no right to be jealous about Isela because she's her own woman that doesn't belong to him. Grim's character is, in a word, inconsistent. It's hot that he wants to kill any man who looks at Isela. It's hot that he respects Isela to look at any other man. It's hot that he is overprotective of Isela. It's hot that he respects Isela's incredible warrior skills and how she can defend herself. He's everything. He's nothing. So here's the premise for the following scene. Isela and Grim are looking for a thief who stole a cursed sword they're looking for. Grim pressures and bullies Isela into agreeing to be an exotic dancer on stage to seduce the thief, succeeds, and then goes to another tent with him. I pace around, trying to give her time, trying to give her space, reminding myself that even though all my thoughts belong to her, she does not belong to me. Why does that want to make me level a mountain? Finally, I can't take it any longer. She's been in there long enough. What if she's hurt? What if she needs me? I stride through the tents and buildings, shredding fabric with my sword, ignoring the shouts that I'm not allowed back here. I pull apart curtain after curtain until I find her atop the thief, straddling his lap. My blood runs cold. Don't kill him, she says, just as I realize I'm about to. I glare. You look like you want to kill him. Of course I do, even though she has already incapacitated the fool. I want to kill a lot of people, I tell her, trying to make her understand, trying to warn her away from me, even as I simultaneously long to pull her closer. I kill a lot of people. It's true. I've killed thousands. I'm a monster, and pain has only made me more powerful. She deserves better than me. I wish I was strong enough to let her go, but even I have limits. She swallows, and my eyes go right to her throat, right to her pulse. It's racing, just like mine. My self-control snaps. I stalk towards her, towards the wall she's now leaning against. She has no idea the danger I pose. She has no idea because she wouldn't look so amused right now if she did. Page 116. This is Grim, truly, at his most childish. The more he insists on his dangerous reputation, the more just pathetic he sounds. Like, okay, that's that scene in short. Let me just sum this up. Let me get in my Grim, which is hurting my throat quite a bit now. I really should take a break to drink something, but I'll do that in a second. I pressured the woman who has my heart, who is perfect, to seduce some guy, and it worked. Ugh. I want to kill this guy. She's her own woman, so I respect her. But I'm done waiting. I'm gonna cut through tents to get to her. And oh fuck, she's on his lap. I'm gonna kill her. Oh, wait, he's knocked out? She knocks him out? You don't need to kill this dude. It's chill, she says. She, the most important being in the universe, says. I kill so many people. I love killing, I say. She deserves better than me because I love killing. She looks at me. My self-control at this point finally snaps. I'm so scary and evil. Like that's what he happened. The fact that he's walking through like a he just takes his sword and he's just like walking through walls, cutting holes in it, and he's just so pissed off, doesn't know where he's going. Her plan is working entirely fine. They agreed to do this. And I didn't include it, but like with the whole sexy dancer seducing thing, he really pressures and bullies her into doing that. And then has the gall to be so pissed off that it works. And also it only goes as far as the plan. But also he just can't stop but thinking like, she's not mine. She's her own woman, and I have to respect that. Really, Grim? So after this, Grim bites her neck, like just bites her, and that gets them so hot and horny they nearly bang. But instead, Grim shoves her through a portal and goes to an ice bath on the top of a mountain. And the book informs us that this just wasn't enough to stop his boner. Like, seriously, it's that explicit. I'm so full of feelings, I portal myself right to the algid, the coldest part of Nightshade, and throw myself into an icy pool. It isn't enough. The want is endless, infinite, and I can't unfeel it. I can't unfeel the desire cresting from her heated skin, her soft moan in my ear. I can't unsee her dancing in those bits of fabric. I can't unwant her. Somehow, like a curse, she has sewn herself into my very soul. I groan, sinking deeper into the ice-cold water. It does nothing for my condition. Page 118. Yet, Grimm continues to insist his brave feminist viewpoint of Isela's personhood, and he does so especially when he holds a ball for no particular reason and watches Isla dance with another man. As if she could hide from me. Yet, she is not mine, I remind myself. She is a ruler of a realm. If I take her away now, revoke her freedom, she will hate me more than she already does. Teeth clenched and jaw locked tightly, I sit back down. I manage to glimpse her dancing alone and strain to follow her movements through the packed room. I command everyone in this realm, but it is she who commands my full attention. Always. Then, a man offers his hand in invitation. I resist the urge to use the nearest shadow to cut it clean off. The heart-eater meets my gaze. I narrow my eyes, daring, just daring her to say yes. She smiles at me, then at the man. She accepts, placing her hand in his. I barely leash the urge to turn the entire room to ash. My knuckles whiten as I grip my throat with iron fists while watching her dance with someone else. It should be me. I should have asked her. Instead, I'm here imagining all the ways I'm gonna kill that man. He's dead. His hand grips her waist, and yes, I will be cutting it off. He smiles and his teeth flash. I will be yanking those out, one by one, taking great satisfaction in mutilating his face. How dare he touch her? How dare she allow it? She turns, holding my gaze as she dances, her body pressed against his, and I wonder if she realizes she's sealed this man's fate. Page 139 to 140. I genuinely can't tell if we're meant to believe Grimm respects Isela's autonomy. Like, it is constantly proven false, yet its sudden addition to his monologues make me think the reader is supposed to believe him, that he considers Isla to be a person who can make her own choices, that he has no ownership over her, that he respects her fully. I suspect that we are meant to be charmed that he can't help his jealousy, that Grimm respects Isla, but his instincts and desire force him to be possessive and violent. They are forcing him to act against his recognition of her autonomy because he loves her so much. And that is worse than it being a lie that he tells himself, because it turns controlling abusive behavior into something positive, a sign of true love and desire. It removes Grimm's responsibility for his actions and his behavior because we know that he thinks Isela is a person. He just cares too much that he acts contrary to that. And what is then somehow even worse about all of this is that Grimm is constantly right and rewarded for it. The man that Isela leaves with at the ball, the one she was dancing with, turns out to have given her a fantasy roofie. This is her choice. I must respect it, as hard as it is. I resolve myself to sit with my pain, until I catch a glimpse of her face just as she leaves the room. Her cheeks are red, redder than I've ever seen them. Page 140. All of Grimm's intrusive thoughts of violence and jealousy are justified, because the man was evil. It's a real sick 1-2 punch here. Grimm gets to save Isela, and Isela is further taught there can be no other man for her but Grimm. In her perspective, we know that she wanted to make Grimm jealous, but she also was genuinely interested in trying to shake off her feelings for him and wanted to see what it was like with another man. And this plot twist here, it shames her for that desire. To rub salt in, we even learn in both versions how Isela felt no desire or satisfaction when kissing this man, because no one but Grimm could ever feel good, so how dare she even try? And I feel quite directionless in this review right now, but that is just a reflection of the book. There's nothing to talk about, and also too much to talk about. It's just all Grimm and Isela at this point, and just dumb little details. Like, Grimm in the second book told Isela that he self-harmed to gain access to greater magic. I remember calling it out in my review as just this frustrating minimalization of self-harm. And in this book, we learn that he was lying to her, and he never has self-harmed. Why he was lying is not said. It's just this weird throwaway thing where he answers her as the original text in Nightshade, yeah, I used to go and hurt myself to get strong magic. And then in this book, he just has an internal thought of like, I don't know why, but that was a lie. What is that? We also get to spend a ridiculous amount of time with them taking care of each other's wounds. You know how the turning point for Oro and Isela was him taking thorns out of her skin? For Grimm, it's taking glass out of hers. And these are nearly identical scenes with nearly identical outcomes, though with Grimm, she sits on his lap and writhes in pain enough that he gets hard. Grimm and Isela have far more wound-tending scenes, though. Like, pretty much every time they're together, one of them is being treated by the other. At one point, we're treated to a small scene where Grimm talks about Isela with one of his generals, Astria, and it's almost refreshing to return to the book's core theme of hating other women. So this is about Isela. I mean, who else? She is a drug. She is an addiction. She is the bane of my existence. She is my undoing. She's pretty, Astria says after the council meeting. I scowl at her familiarity. I don't care who she's talking about. I don't deign to respond. The girl in your room just now? She's pretty. Like, kind of infuriatingly pretty, you know? I go still. Infuriatingly pretty. There's only one person who could possibly earn that distinction. Page 120. There's two things about this that I find utterly captivating. The first is its existence. This is a scene where Astria lets Grimm know that she saw Isela. She could have informed him of this in countless ways. And since Isela turns out to have already been gone and nothing comes of this, this scene does not need to exist at all. It doesn't move the plot or characters or anything forward. It does nothing. But it exists. And instead of just casually letting Grimm know about Isela, Astria tells Grimm about Isela by telling him she saw a pretty girl. A girl so pretty it is upsetting. A girl who is just so unfathomably pretty it could cause anger, because no one else could ever compare. This is a book which has told us time and time again that Isela is the most spectacularly gorgeous, hot, pretty woman in the cosmos. It does not need to be emphasized further, especially not by other women. The implication of this infuriating pretty thing is that one look and Astria knows she could never compare. That this random woman is so perfect, it makes all efforts by others to look good tragic in comparison. It's also a very strange thing to say, Astria. Like, we don't know Astria's sexuality. Does she view Isela as competition, as I just suggested? Or is it the kind of annoyingly beautiful that leaves Astria frustrated because she feels there's no way that a girl that hot would ever go for her? She doesn't know who Isela is or why she was hanging in Grim's room, but rather than remark about there being a visitor waiting for her, she opens by discussing her beauty. No other context is given or needed, as Grim knows who Astria is talking about instantly. Infuriatingly beautiful is a strange thing to say, Astria. Especially since, oops, that's your first cousin. Astria doesn't know this, but them being cousins adds another layer to all of this. This book is so eager to insist on Isela's beauty, it is reduced to making her cousin opine about her attractiveness. It might even imply her cousin finds her hot, and that's the price we all have to pay in order to be told for the 500th time that Isela is perfect. Grim and Isela only begin hooking up in the last few chapters, but God, it feels like a lifetime. After more of the same, again and again, they finally get going. And this is a huge relief to Grim, who we are informed has pretty much been like non-stop hard since he met Isela. I really wish that that was in any way a joke. She doesn't know that I've been almost constantly on edge since I've met her. She doesn't know that I think of her every night, every time I allow myself to relieve my near constant arousal. Page 165. Isela's perfection begins to hit, believe it or not, truly ungodly levels when Grim witnesses her naked. That's when I realize I've never known pleasure. I've never known beauty. I've never known want. For 500 years, I've been a stranger to all of it. I know that for certain when I see her undressed. But what I feel at the sight of her, all of her, isn't just desire. It's something else. Something unexpected. Gratitude. Gratitude for the universe allowing something so beautiful to exist. Something so perfect, it defies logic. Page 168. And to top it all off, there's more gross kissing. I lick the top of her mouth. I lick across her teeth. I lick her so thoroughly she'll taste me for days. Page 167. I don't have much to say about the specific of the sex scenes. They're not good, obviously, especially because they're still stuck in this bizarre limbo of being explicit and vague. They are very long, and there's a lot of them in the last few chapters. It is very clear what is happening, yet the word nipple is evidently too adult for this YA book that has just never been anything but horny. Especially these novellas. Very, very horny. I think the way that we handle sex in YA and spice is currently the worst of both worlds. There's been an increase in explicit sex in YA, yet still far too much restraint. That's not to say I need overly graphic scenes in YA, it's that this is really the coward's way out. Censoring the topic by not using the word penis doesn't prevent what is occurring from being sex. So let it be sex. We know it is. It's being sold as such. It's being read as such. I don't really care for extremely explicit sex in YA myself, but, sex in YA isn't new. It's gotten more detailed over the years, the scene's longer, yet there's still this feeble attempt in books like Lightlark to pretend being YA means nipple is a dirty word. I'm literally reading about Grimm's non-stop boner. I think if a reader can handle that, they can handle the rest. It's a sign of this weird immaturity and also fear of mature topics, while also just being a topic that is mature. But also, I do think sex has a place in YA, but also this is just the worst way to do it. So, as Grim and Isela get busy, we learn that, of course, it is the best and most perfect sex Grim has ever had. He will never desire anyone again. Nothing has ever been so good. Nothing's ever felt so right. She's perfect at everything. Her first go. They do their dumb sword quests. They acquire a baby dragon, which has no physical description, but cries tears and cries in general, and I still find that dragon very unsettling. They go hot air ballooning. Grim has a fear of heights, which is introduced in one paragraph and then self-cured the next paragraph. They're totally in love now, and we really witness the depths of their love when Grim describes Isela ahead of the centennial. In truth, I can't imagine acting as if I haven't felt her every shade of emotion on my tongue, as if I haven't noticed endless details about her through hour upon hour of watching, waiting, and paying attention. To pretend I don't know that you love chocolate and touching your hair and that you blush when I look at you for more than a few seconds, or that you hate the cold and love to dance and you frown when you lie. I tuck her hair behind her ear. You really do, by the way. You should work on that before the centennial. Page 195. And there's something so wonderful about how, after hundreds of pages of fan service slop, this is all Grimm can say about Isela. He may monologue endlessly about how she is perfection in the flesh, but at the end of the day, this is her unfortunate truth. She likes chocolate. She touches her hair. Sometimes she dances or blushes. She doesn't like the cold. This is not a personality. It's barely a list of traits because some of them are so broad. They're like light preferences. Hours of stalking, obsessing, and loving, and this is the depths of their infinite love. She loves touching her hair. What a woman. What a goddess. What a romance. And Grimm suddenly realizes that he loves Isela in a moment of peril. And I mean, it's very dramatic. He's never loved anyone before, and this realization really shocks him. My eyes widen in horror, but then the realization sets in. There's only one way she's here, one way she's using my powers without the portaling device. So that's what this is. That's the name of this feeling, of this longing, of this obsession that is both cruel and merciful, both curse and cure. I've never loved anyone or anything, but I love her. I love her. I smile, even as death rages around us, even as my own is imminent. Page 216. But then, a page ago, like a page ago, he said this. Together. She wants to face the end of the world together. But I love her too much to let her. Page 214. So, kind of takes the wind out of the sails of that revelation. At the end of the book, we get their wedding. You gotta love how these two novellas end. Oro vowing that he's cool being cucked as long as Isela lives, while Grimm gets to have tons of sex and marry her. It's like Oro can sense what's happening in the novella next to his. And I think it's something that's very emblematic of the book itself. I pointed out that there's these end pages. There's this full illustration of the wedding between Isela and Grimm here. That's what's on Grimm's side. If we turn to Oro's side, what romantic illustration do we have? This is when Isela gets shot and Grimm is in the shadows and he's unable to reach her and fire's raging around. So those are the contrasting images for the two romances. The perfect fairy tale wedding and the time Oro saw Isela get shot. And he didn't really get to save her or anything. Grimm actually saved her. So, great. So, yeah. To cap things out, Grimm pulls a move right out of those... Okay, this is a specific reference, but you might know these. It's like one of those bizarre romantic relationship stories you used to see. Danny Gonzalez has a video that did, like, bad relationship memes. That's the one I'm really thinking of. So, the ones where they'd be, like, a story about a guy and a girl. And the girl asks, do you like me? And the guy would go, no. And then the girl runs away crying. And the guy starts murmuring, I don't like you. I love you. Like that kind of thing. Like she'd be like, do you love me? Will you love me forever? And he's like, no, I wouldn't love you forever. I'd love you forever and 20. That kind of thing. They were a thing for a while. So, those really bad relationship meme story things? Because Grimm literally does that. I love you, she whispers in my ear, and I stop breathing. I love you. No one's ever said that to me. She pulls away. You don't have to say it back. I don't even know why. I shake my head and grab her arms. My answer is immediate. I don't love you. She stills, the panic in her face. The devastation is so sharp. I don't waste a moment before continuing. That isn't a strong enough word, I frown. No, heart, I don't love you. I live for you. I destroy for you. I die for you. My every thought and emotion revolve around you. You are my sun, my moon, my gravity, my eternity. Her eyes are wide and brimming in tears. I take her hands in mine, and slowly, slowly, I bow before her on both knees. I'm ruler of Nightshade. I shouldn't get down on my knees for anyone or anything. But she is my church. She is my curse. She is my conviction. She is my God. I bow only to her. Page 221. And yeah, I guess we got churches, so like add that to the list. I mean, maybe one day we'll know what they worship in there. That's the end of Grimm. These novellas truly form a strange little pair, don't they? This is the story of a boy with a secret flair and a not-so-secret lack of ability. His mother is his connection to emotion and kindness and the idea of love. His father is a nameless force of corruption and abuse. The boy does not want to be king, so it is a good thing that his older sibling will be instead. The boy is lonely. The boy hides his emotions. And then the sibling is killed, and the boy, who is now a man, becomes king. There is a war where he kills thousands and is scarred forever by that toll. He feels nothing because if he lets himself feel, he destroys everything in his path with his emotions. He is attractive and desired, but has no desire in turn. No woman has ever really caught his eye, and he finds love dangerous and unwise. One day, the man meets himself, but it is a brief visit. Then the man meets a girl, and she is everything in the universe which is perfect and beautiful. At the same time, she is his enemy. An obsession forms. He stalks her. He finds her irritating, weak, annoying, stupid, and rage-inducing. He finds her strong, cunning, beautiful, wise, and utterly perfect. They come to work together in order to find a magic item which will end a curse, and while he hates doing so, the man falls in love. They get injured and tend to each other's wounds. They talk about the past. They feel very alike. She loves him. It takes at least 5 jet ends until they find the magic MacGuffin, but they do. All is well. Except this isn't one story, but 2. Or perhaps it is one story, but twice. Not a parallel, but an echo. A reflection reflecting itself. Neither is what I would call a robust narrative, but placed beside each other, those similarities and faults become further obvious. You read this and you want them to diverge, and instead they grow closer. Both hate war and exceed in it, crave bloody revenge, and detest meaningless slaughter. They do not differ. When they are friends, they are hurt by each other, but this does not shake them from their synchronized path. When they meet that same woman at different times, they love and hate her in identical ways. It is obnoxiously purposeless, a story bifurcated like a flatworm into 2 selves for no reason but a blatant lack of creativity. I feel a bit mean saying that about Alex Astor, but I've cited enough evidence on the subject. I think it's getting close to objectively true. Lightlark has always been a lot of tropes and a tiny bit of follow-through, an aesthetic board of a fantasy world which is as flippant as she is. I have never read a series as disorganized as Lightlark. Each book is a series of side quests to locate suddenly important items in order to stop a threat, which appears out of nowhere, and eventually confront a villain just as improvised. There is no sense of accumulation over these hundreds and hundreds of pages, just a meandering tumble of random events and returning drama. The ball keeps rolling. I struggle to see how anyone but a sick dog like myself keeps chasing it. Lest we forget, this is a writer who wants to talk about church and gods, but won't decide what religion looks like in her world, who wants drama over power inheritance and children, but can't tell us a single specific detail of how it functions. She writes words about her world, not words of her world. She is, simply put, not very creative. Maybe if she was allowed to sleep a few more hours, things would improve. Maybe if she didn't sign on to write so many books, she wouldn't have to turn out so many books. Now, it is admittedly unfair to call Grimm and Oro identical novellas or characters. I complained a lot about them not differing, but obviously they do, in one critical way. Isela and Grimm are in love. And that's the only true divergent present between these 2 men. Isela and Grimm are married by the end, and Oro has yet to kiss her. Grimm and Isela have so much sex, and Oro has a sad, wet dream. Grim saves Isela's life by tying it to his forever, and Oro prays to save Isela's life by promising the gods he's happy to stay celibate. For all that is the same in these stories, their differences center on Isela. Because, as we all know, Isela is the center of the goddamn universe. This has been a pretty funky review to write. I have enjoyed it tremendously, but defining my feelings about it has been like trying to build something solid out of a formless mass of ooze. I'm tearing it to pieces, jamming it together, trying to shape something out of a material which is primarily nothing. It is a repeat of a repeat. The same plot as the main series books, the same plot across 2 novellas, the same thoughts rambling the same feelings again and again until the same girl falls in love. Even this conclusion is plagued by echoes. I expect that I will read Crown Tide soon after I finish filming this. I expect it will be the story of a very special girl, unlike all girls who once were and ever will be. I expect she will wander from checkpoint to checkpoint until the book's villain is defeated. I expect Oro and Grim will both love her, but Grim will love her more. I expect it will not be good. I expect it will earn her more money than I will ever make from anything. I expect that none of that money will go towards a funeral service for her editors, who at this point have been lost in a coma long enough that we really ought to be considering them, tragically, legally, dead.